Terry, do I return the host to you?
Thank you.
Do I need to send it back to you, Terry?
Yes.
Okay. And we are also live on YouTube. 1 second. Sorry, Terry. Okay, it's returned. UGTV will be starting within a minute or so.
Hello, Commissioner Burrows. Let's see, looks like we have yourself, myself, and Commissioner Townsend and Walters.
We are live on YouTube and UGTV now.
Thank you so much. We'll wait just a minute for Commissioner Johnson in case he's running late. We do have a quorum, so we can start the meeting. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do. Since we do have a fairly full agenda on both committees tonight, it's 1 after 5. Let's go ahead and start. And as Commissioner Johnson is able, he will join us. So before I call this meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, some committee members, staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom, as well as being on site. All participants joining by phone or by computer are asked to mute their devices when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, we ask that you announce yourself by name and by title every time you speak so that the public who is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. Due to COVID-19 requirements, in-person public comment has been suspended unless otherwise required by law. However, the public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of the meeting. With all of that out of the way, I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee. I'll ask that the clerk please call the roll.
Roll call. McKiernan.
Here.
Burrows.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
Johnson. Walters.
Here.
Thank you so much. Our first item of business, is revisions to tonight's agenda, and there were none after the agenda was originally published, so we can then move on to approval of standing committee minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes that are before us tonight, one from September 28th, 2020 that we asked for some revisions on, another set from January 4th, 2021, and a third set from February 1st, 2021. And I'll ask Commissioner Townsend if you have had an opportunity to look through those from September, because you had a couple of things you wanted us to clarify. And Commissioner Townsend, if you are talking, you are still muted and we cannot hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Technical difficulties, as they say. I did have the opportunity to review, courtesy of our clerk's office, the revisions made to the September 28th, 2020 minutes, and I'm in full agreement with the corrections made. Therefore, I would move for approval. Thanks again to our outstanding clerk's office. I always appreciate their work.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I guess I'll ask legal, is it okay if we take all three sets of minutes with the same motion and the same vote?
Yes, I think that's perfectly fine.
All right, we have a motion for approving September 28th. Commissioner Townsend, would you like to also include January 4th and February 1st?
I would, Mr. Chairman. So I modify my previous motion to include approval of the minutes, not only as revised of September 28, 2020, but also those minutes for January 4th and February 1st, 2021.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Walters, second.
Fantastic. There's a motion and a second to approve those minutes as revised and as submitted. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you so much, committee. That takes us to the committee agenda. We have two main items on our community agenda, the first of which are land bank options or options, property options presented by the land bank. And committee, I'm going to ask for your guidance on this. It seems to me that we have, if you look on the item, there's there's four different main headings, each of which having one or more properties under it. And it seems to me that a way to keep this cohesive would be to consider each of the headings, the general categories of properties, and then all the individual lots and addresses underneath that. So does that seem to make sense that we take these in batches based on, I see a thumbs up. So beautiful. Let's go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Judd Knapp. And so what we'll do is we'll consider the heading that is new construction, 26 single family homes.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will share my screen. All right. But first, before we go into that agenda item, I just want to say that since our last meeting, we've met with commissioners and the advisory board members, and we've had implemented some changes to the land bank process. The first change is we give extra time to our advisory board members to review the same PowerPoint that we look at tonight. This will add an extra week to our process, but that will take the total process time to a month and a half to 2 months, depending on when the commission meeting is. The second change we made is giving notice to neighborhood groups. I send this PowerPoint to the areas that have like applications. So I send them this PowerPoint, and I include the information of this public meeting also in that email. And I plan on providing any comments I receive from the neighborhood groups in this meeting also. All right. So for today, we have 26 single family homes, 1 row house, 1 home addition, 1 commercial, and 1 yard extension for a total of 30 applications. Our first one is from CHWC requesting 18 land bank lots. They plan on building these 18 new homes in 3 phases spanning 3 years. Now, so we're going to put, if approved, we'll put a hold on all 18 land bank lots. And then they have to complete construction on the first phase. So build the first 6 homes. If completed during the first year, we will keep the hold for the remaining 12 properties to stay in place. And then phase 2 will enter the option, and they'll have a year. And then holding the remaining 6 properties on a hold. And then when they finish phase 2, when they completely build it out, we will give them the option for phase 3. This is kind of the plan that CHWC provided us of which house will be built on which lot. This is kind of a summary of what each house will be, the details of each house plan. Each house plan is basically 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and they're between 1,400 square feet and 1,600 square feet for each plan. Phase 1 will build 6 homes. As you can see on the map, there's locations. I provided their addresses and parcel numbers also. Phase 2, they build 6 homes. And phase 3, another additional 6. The next steps would be building inspection approval. They provide a building estimate and then proof of funds to cover those building estimates. The staff and land bank advisory boards recommend this. And I also provided the Northeast area future land use map. And this area is in a single family zoned area. So that would, I believe that's all I have for CHWC in the 26 single family home. Oh, wait, nope, my fault. I will keep going. The next one is requesting 3 land bank lots at 202, 204, and 206 Stewart Avenue. A little backstory to this. The family currently owns 205 and 203. They plan, the 205 was their grandmother's, like the home she grew up in. So the family plans to rehab it, move the grandmother back into the home. And this first build is to build for a family member to support the grandmother living in that home. The home details are 4-bed, 3.5 baths, 3,600 square feet. They plan to start in August of this year and finish April of next year. Their experiences, they're going to work with an experienced builder. The next step for this would be building inspection approval, building estimate, and proof of funds to cover the building estimate. The recommendations from the staff and land bank advisory boards were to approve. I did include the Northeast area future land use map. This area is in the purple color, which is business park and light industrial. The next one is for 844 and 848 Jerome Avenue. This is for 2 single family homes with detached accessory dwelling units. The main house will be 2-bed, 1-bath, 800,000 square feet, and the ADU apartment that's behind it will be 1-bed, 1-bath, 400 to 500 square feet. They plan it on starting on October 2021 and completing in May of 2022. Their experience is it's an independent consultant in prefabrication and energy efficient construction. Wants to develop a prototype for cost-effective, high-performance single-family residences, and he also wants to launch a design challenge to generate designs for single-family homes with accessory dwelling units for narrow lots to match the central area master plan. This is an exciting part of this project. We will get a number of great designs that can be built on narrow lots. We are working with planning on this project. These designs can be pre-approved to be built on lots, and this will cut down on the cost of building a home. An accessory dwelling unit is basically a smaller house behind the main house, and this accessory dwelling unit could be used as rental income to cover the mortgage of the house, and it could also be used for multi-generational families. The recommendation from the staff and Land Bank Advisory Board is to approve. This one actually got removed today. There was some sewer and water connection issues on this lot, but I talked to the applicant today, and I believe they are moving their application, so you should see this application next month in a different location. So the next one is 3517 North 47th Street. It's for a single-family home. This is a 1.66 acre lot. That is important because this is there is no sewer in this area currently, and they would need that much acreage to support a septic system. The home details are a 2-bed, 1-bath, 1,000 square foot. They plan to start in April this year and be completed by December of 2021. They've worked in the construction trades. The next steps would be building inspection approval, a septic permit. Basically, they have to do a soil test profile to make sure a septic system will work on this lot. And then they'll provide us with a building estimate and proof of funds to cover that building estimate. The recommendations from the Staff Advisory Committee and Land Bank Advisory Board was to approve. The next one, we've seen this application 2 times, I believe. It's for 3008 North 30th Street. It's for a single family home. 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet. The next steps is building inspection approval, cost to build, and proof of funds. I did provide a map of the northeast area future use land map with the star, the location of this proposed build. The question was if this property is located in the Quindaro town site boundary. And that would finish out the 26, Commissioner.
So thank you, Mr. Knapp. Really appreciate the presentation. Committee, at this point, even though these properties fall under the broad heading of single-family homes, you can appreciate that there is quite a diversity of location and of approach. And so I'll take the committee's direction on whether or not we deal with all of these applications as a group, or if we go ahead and do them subgroup by subgroup. And I'll recognize Commissioner Townsend to get the discussion started. Commissioner Townsend, you are still muted.
Thank you,
There
Mr.
you go.
Chairman. I raised my hand not really to address the question you just made. We can get back to that. I don't have a particular preference one way or the other, but I did have just 1 or 2 comments, questions from Mr. Knapp. Excellent presentation. Just had a few questions. So, Mr. Knapp, first of all, I want to say I appreciate the efforts of you and Ms. Carter and the meeting that was facilitated by several of the members of the Land Bank Advisory Board, Ms. Jefferson and others. And I appreciate that you and Ms. Carter have moved forward to implement the changes recommended out of that meeting. So I wanted to start off with that. Particularly, I wanted to go to the homes or to the lots requested by Ms. Christy Smith High. You mentioned that the family currently owns some property and that they were going to build, what, 2 homes? How many homes are going to be built?
Currently, it's 1 home.
Okay, and there was a display that you had. I was curious as to whether or not the display that you had for that particular home was actually representative of what they intend to build there, or yeah, right there.
Yes, that is the picture the applicant provided me.
Okay, I cannot wait to see that there. And I also want to wish that family good luck because of what you mentioned in terms of them looking at property they already owned and property in the vicinity to accommodate an aging family member and someone to be right there. I know what it is to be a caregiver long-term. So I really applaud their vision in solving that issue this way. So I can't wait to see that home in that area. So those were my only comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Walters.
Yes, I have a question about the Gupta. application, the accessory unit concept. Can you explain how you can build two residences on a single parcel and at what point or what limitations there are to building two residences on one parcel in a R1B zoning?
I did, Commissioner, I did ask our planning director this question, and he said the only zoning that we allow accessory dwelling unit to be built is an R1B. And that is the area that this proposed build is in.
And Commissioner, this is just a garage, and then it's adding a room above a garage is what this is. So it's what has been traditional in a lot of these neighborhoods. And so I believe that is where the planning department is looking to make this more accessible. It's, as Judd was mentioning earlier, great for, some people call them kind of a nanny flat or a granny flat, depending on what's going on in your life there. But they're a good option and have been for generations. So allowing people to go back and to the more traditional way of building these units over a garage is the plan. But yeah, planning would certainly be the one who could answer the very specific questions.
Do you know if there are any square footage maximums for the secondary house? Or?
I'm sure there are. I don't know what they are, however.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess if I could follow up on that, these certainly are two narrow lots, and there will need to be a narrow lot compatible structure built on this as the primary residence. And I'm assuming that if Mr. Gupta were to get these lots, he would have to go through the entire planning process. All of the plans, all the setbacks, all the square footages would all have to be approved prior to construction. Would that be correct?
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay. So again, we circle back to, we're giving the option provided that everything plays out and he passes all the other requirements of the area.
Correct.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure that, just for the record and for clarity, when we vote, our vote will be not including properties at 914 and 916 Oakland. Is that correct?
That will be correct. Since they have been removed, if we choose to vote on single family homes as a group, it will be CHWC, Christie Smith High, Karan Gupta, Maribel Cortez, and Habitat for Humanity.
Very well. Okay, just want to get clarity.
Any other comments or questions from the committee on this group of options for single family home construction? I don't see any other hands raised from within the committee. So I'll ask the clerk's office if we received any communication regarding any of these applications for single family homes.
Chairman, there were none received.
Thank you so much. And is there anyone in attendance who would like to offer comment on any of these applications for single family homes? I don't see any hands up among the attendees. And so I'll come back to the committee and ask if there is a motion on this group of single family home options.
This is Walters. I will move for approval.
Townsend, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve as submitted these options for single family homes. Roll call, please.
Roll call: Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows. Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you so much. That takes us to our second And correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mr. Knapp, but it is new construction home addition. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go ahead and take it away and present this one.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. So this one is at 3052 North 31st Street. They currently own 3056 North 31st Street. This is for a home addition onto their current house that they own. I drove by this week and took a picture of it this week. So this is the house in question. This is the lot next to it. And there was a question on the previous slide about the Habitat houses that were built next to it, because this aerial view was from March of last year and that there were foundations like dug. So I drove by and confirmed that these houses are completed. The house details is the addition will add 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. So that will bring the house total up to 3 bed, 2 baths. They plan to start in April of this year and complete April of next year. They need building inspection approval. They need to combine the lots. They need a building estimate and a proof of funds to cover their building estimate. The staff advisory committee said they could build on their own lot, and they might want to reserve the lot because Habitat is building in the area. The Land Bank Advisory Board did not see any issues with this request. I did draw on the map kind of what the applicant had in mind to cross over the line here. So from the existing home to the property line is 18 feet. So it's 18 feet from here to here. This is, according to zoning, you need a 5-foot setback from the property line. So that would be a max footed 13 feet max for the home addition to build on their own lot. So I also included the Northeast area future land use map, and the home is in the single family area. That concludes my presentation on the home edition.
So, Mr. Knapp, in this case, the applicant would be acquiring the lot next door, and a small fraction of that lot would be used for their new construction, but effectively they'd be getting a yard extension for the majority of the lot they acquire. Would that be correct?
That is correct. The applicant did talk to me that they were the addition would cost them $50,000. So we thought that might be enough to bring it forward to you to see if we would allow them to build over the property line and get the yard extension.
Thank you so much. And I do appreciate you actually visiting the property, because compared to Google Street View, it is quite a different property today than the last time Google drove a truck down that street. So at this point, I'll ask if anyone from the committee has comments or questions for Mr. Knapp.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, having trouble with the hand raising. I do have a question. So there will only be a matter of several feet for the new construction over into this lot requested at 3052. Did the homeowners indicate any future plans for the rest of that? Is just going to be maintained yard or driveways or garage, was there any discussion about that for the future?
Commissioner, there was not any discussion about that.
Okay.
I will add it to my.
Commissioner, if I could just jump in for a second. Mr. Knapp, was the staff advisory committee's concern that by the applicant taking this property that we would lock out Habitat from potentially building another entire house, not just a house addition?
Yes, that is correct.
Has Habitat indicated any interest in this lot? I know they've built on the other side, but have they contacted you with any interest in this particular lot?
No, they have not.
Thank you so much. Commissioner, I apologize for jumping in. I'll turn the floor back to you.
Well, no, I appreciate that. I think we have similar concerns. I appreciate this homeowner wanting to improve their current residential structure, but it seems like we still have so much on the 3052 left undeveloped. What I would appreciate seeing is that Mr. Knapp, if you would, if you go back or go to Habitat and just inquire if they foresee any interest in that same lot. And I'm not the best with building specs, but the current homeowner, Mr. Lozano, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, sir, but is there any way they can make this addition using only the property they currently have, but repositioning it somehow to lie only within the lot that they currently have?
Commissioner, I would also, if Judd, if you could go back to the previous slide, just pointing out for everyone's information, so the green shaded lots, those are all land bank, vacant land bank lots. So while we're certainly excited to see that there is building in on this block and in the area, there is certainly substantial additional lots that are available for building.
If Habitat were interested, I guess is what you're saying.
If Habitat or anyone else were interested in building a home on this block.
Okay. All right. Well, having that view of all of those, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looks like 5 empty lots across 31st Street and several more north of the 3056. I guess that takes care of my concern that there would be other opportunities for habitat in close proximity. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Townsend hit on my concern also, $50,000 addition, but it looks like we're eliminating nearly 2 lots that would not be built on. That would be 3052 and whatever the corner lot is there, Judd. It doesn't have a number on it, but yes, that one. But it is on the corner. So it's going to be, we're having 2 lots that are impacted by the new development. Is that correct?
Commissioner, the corner lot is still a buildable lot. It's still wider than 25 feet, so it matches our definition for a buildable lot.
Even after the construction of 3056 into 3052, it's still a buildable lot?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
If I could jump in here for a moment, Commissioner. Judd, you drew a blue square around
Yes.
these 2 lots, and your blue line, we'll go back to right there. Your blue line is drawn through that corner lot, and it visually suggests that corner lot will be part of the transaction, but it won't, will it?
That was not intended. I put the square around to bring your eye to that area on the map, and I didn't want to put it on the property line either, so you couldn't see the property boundaries. So
Okay.
it's going to be over in the future. If you want me to make it a little smaller, I can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was my concern, that it was shaving the corner lot down in size also. But Jed, I noticed that there is no curb in front of 3056. It looks like the curb truncates. Was there a driveway there at one time? And will the new homeowner be required to put in a driveway? Because if they're not parking on the street, I noticed other residents are parking in a driveway, but it's awful hard to tell by this picture if the curb was cut out or if it was just discontinued.
Commissioner, I really don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Commissioner, another possibility is that after years of multiple grind and overlay, it may have simply deteriorated at this point.
Okay. Well, the purpose of asking was getting to Commissioner Townsend's request about the garage and everything built by the way they're going to design the house. I was just curious as to how they were going to deal with that. Any sidewalks? I don't see any sidewalks in any of the property. I was to assume that under new construction sidewalks were to be built, but is that not the case?
Commissioner, again, I do not know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Does the committee have any other comments or questions for Mr. Knapp regarding this particular application? I don't see any other hands up. I'll ask the clerk's office if there was any communication regarding this application.
Chairman, there were none received.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone in attendance at the meeting who would like to offer input on this particular application? I don't see any hands up among the attendees. And so it comes back to us as a committee in terms of our decision. Is there a motion from the committee regarding this application?
Walters, move for approval.
Townsend,
Johnson.
second.
Fantastic. We have a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you. That takes us to our next application, which is for new construction, but row houses requiring 3 contiguous land bank lots. Mr. Knapp.
Thank you, Commissioner. So they're requesting 3 land bank lots at 1026, 1030, and 1038 Oakland Avenue. This will be for new construction for row houses totaling 8 units. The current zoning is R2B, 2-family district. This would require a zoning change to R3. The house details are a 4-plex with 3-bed, 2.5 bath per unit, almost 1,400 square feet. There will be 2 separate buildings. They plan to start construction in summer of 2021 and complete it in spring of 2022. They have 10 years of construction experience. The next steps would be a zoning change, building inspection approval, building estimate, and proof of funds to cover the building estimate. The recommendations from the Staff Advisory Committee and Land Bank Advisory Board were recommended for approval. And I do have to say, from our advisory board meeting, because we gave them more time, they were able to reach out to the neighborhood group and speak with them at our advisory meeting. A member informed us that the Struggler Hills neighborhood group approves of this project. There's a drawing of what the buildings will look like on the lots. And here is the land use map for the Northeast area, and it is in medium higher density. So it would match the area master plan. That concludes for the row houses.
Thank you so much, Mr. Knapp. I do applaud the applicant for reaching out to the neighborhood groups. Certainly, we're trying to be much more intentional in engaging neighbors in the areas of potential projects and allowing neighbors to give their perspective on those applications and those proposed projects. So well done for the developer. Does the committee have any comments or questions for Mr. Knapp on this? I'll recognize Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate this project. Judd, you said that these are row houses. The picture depicts something like a townhome. Is that a good adaptation of what will actually be constructed on those properties?
That is the picture the applicant provided me, yes.
Okay. Because those look like it's not duplexes, but I guess sixplexes, triplexes or whatever, or some type of townhome. But whatever it is, it's going to be, I think, a great improvement in that area. Any specific comments? I know Strugglers Hills is a very outspoken group, and which I appreciate. They are ones that have helped to create the Northeast Master Plan, and their input I highly appreciate. Any specific comments that you received from them in particular?
I didn't actually receive comments from them. I received comments from our advisory board meeting. A member spoke with the neighborhood group and then relayed it to us during our advisory board meeting. And that is all the comments that I received.
All right.
Project.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Does any other member of the committee have comments or questions for Mr. Knapp? I'll ask the clerk's office if we received any communication regarding this application.
Chairman, there were none received.
Thank you so much. I do see that somebody in the attendees group, Phil Donnellan, has a hand up. And if Mr. Donnellan does have comment on this particular application, I would invite him to be promoted. And if it is regarding this application, he would have 3 minutes to share his views on that. I see he has been promoted, still muted, and so would need to unmute.
I believe I chimed in at the wrong time. I just signed in and I was going to talk about the bridge project.
Perfect. I tell you what, thank you so much for clarifying. We're going to go ahead and put you back over in the attendees list for now, and you'll have an
Okay.
opportunity later on.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I don't see any other hands up among the attendees. And so I would ask the committee if there is a motion regarding these applications.
Motion to approve, Johnson.
Townsend, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you, committee. Mr. Knapp, the next thing I have on my agenda is new construction commercial. Is that correct? It is. Take it away.
They're requesting 3119 Strong Avenue. It's for new construction. They want to do food service and open air plaza built with shipping containers. It's currently zoned CP1. They're going to have a pizza, and their food truck is the Father's Tanner's Kitchen. This will serve as a commercial commissary for their food truck. They will also seek local artists to paint murals on the shipping containers. And this will be similar to the Iron District in North Kansas City that's currently built. I did include this SketchUp model of what the insides would look like. Now, these shipping containers, like this one's a bathroom. These are the kitchens with the stoves against the wall. And that's what it will look like with the plaza in the middle. This is an aerial view of the Iron District in North Kansas City. The building details, square footage be 1,800 square feet. The outdoor area will be 5,600 square feet. They plan on planning it May 2021 through May 2022. They plan to build it, be completed by August 2022, and they plan on opening September of 2022. Their construction experience, they are using an experienced builder with shipping containers. The next steps would be building inspection approval. I do have to note that shipping containers are approved by our building codes. They just have to be put on foundations, and they have to be insulated to our energy standards, and then provide us a building estimate and then proof of funds to cover that. The recommendations from the staff and the Land Bank Advisory Board were to approve. I do have to say the area MBR mentioned that they've been trying to sell this lot for years, and they are very pleased with the project. That concludes the commercial part.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. I appreciate the fact that the applicant reached out to the NBR, Argentine Betterment Corporation. I'm hoping they also reached out to the District Commissioner Ramirez.
I do not know, Commissioner.
What I would say is I would encourage them to reach out to the in-district commissioner. The at-large commissioner is here with us on this call, and so can offer perspective there. But I would encourage them to do that as a courtesy, given the fact that this could be quite a change on that particular corner. Does any member of the committee have comments or questions for Mr. Knapp about this application? Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In reference to the murals, I know that we have been dealing with murals in the community as of late, Judd. Do we know if the murals that will be painted on these facilities will have to meet a certain criteria, or will they just be allowed to be given out to artists as a blank canvas to do their artistic talents? Do we have any idea as to what kind of art will be accepted?
Sound like a broken record, but I do not know, Commissioner.
Then I can take this. Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't know the total details on this, but I know we do have, it's very similar to signage type of restrictions. So obviously nothing that is inappropriate in any way. I would probably suggest to this group to do something like they're doing currently now with the Merck. They are going through a process where they're having murals that will be built or be painted. And we've requested that there is a city representative on the selection committee so that we can ensure that they are following all the appropriate standards. But this is something that I believe is to a certain degree, there's some parameters in place through planning.
Well, the purpose of asking is I know we have some very talented artists in our community, and the opportunity to enhance that richness of those containers that are satisfactory and conducive to the neighborhood is of utmost importance. I would anticipate that the community would want to see something that they can take great pride in and have an opportunity to share and enjoy for years to come. And so I was just curious as to what standards we might have in place to keep the project standard high. I have been to this facility that is on display here. It is a unique facility, and it may very well fit in the community that is requesting the opportunity to do so. I would just wanted to see it. I'd like to see it succeed as much as the neighbors would.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Walters.
Yes, I would like to see this corner developed. I am not a fan of this type of construction with the storage containers. And I think Wyandotte County is doing a pretty good job trying to minimize the amount of storage containers that are in our community. So I like the project, I just don't like the storage containers. So kind of at odds as to whether I should object to granting the transfer based on this proposal or not. So I guess if by approving this transfer, we're also approving this particular development, I'm gonna have to say no.
And I'll look to Ms. Carter or Mr. Knapp for direction on that. Certainly, that's one of the reasons that I would encourage the applicant to meet with the in-district and the at-large commissioner for this area to kind of flesh this out and to have an opportunity to exchange plans and viewpoints and maybe to come to a better proposal overall. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just so glad this was not another proposal for use of a storage container, at least in a residential area. And while it has a certain allure for some places, I am concerned that a lot of our community residents still will not appreciate the distinctions between how these might be used, and for whatever reasons they want to use these containers in a commercial environment. Is there any way we could hold this item over? I appreciate Commissioner Burrow's comments about improving the corner. I'm not familiar with the corner, but all of us want to see our areas, residential and commercial, improved. But I guess I just have some concern about the trailers and what they might look like. That's just, it is so the direction we're trying not to go. And again, I have concerns that our constituents will not fully appreciate the distinctions being made here as we try to improve. I love the idea of a fountain there, though. I love that. So is there any way that this could be at least held over for another month to give, Mr. Chairman, as you recommended, this developer an opportunity to talk with the in-district and maybe even come up with some other idea for improvement, or what would be used to improve that corner, structurally speaking?
Well, thank you, Commissioner. It certainly would be within the purview of this committee to hold the application for a period of time to allow those meetings to occur. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Chair. And I think I completely agree with the sentiments of holding this over, particularly with an interest of making sure that the in-district commissioner is aware and approves. I don't have a problem with the project. I think it's unique. And of course, I'm not sure. Did you mention whether or not they've talked to the representative community groups, Judd and or Catherine, or can anybody speak to that and see whether or not they are aware of this project?
They have spoken with the Argentine Betterment Council, ABC, the NBR in that area, and they are very supportive of the project.
Yeah. So with that being said, I'm supportive of the project. I think I'm more concerned that the in-district, we've not heard or had a chance to hear from the representative of that. And I'd be certainly willing to have it pushed back. But I support the project. I think it's unique. And as long as the representative neighborhood or an NBR is in agreement with it, I'm good with it. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Walters.
Just to clarify, I thought I heard Judd say that ABC currently owned the property. Is that correct? No, it's in the land bank.
Yeah, it's land. They've been trying to encourage some type of development on.
Oh, they've been trying to just. Okay, that's where I was confused.
Yeah, but
right,
no, it's been a land bank property.
Committee, before I ask for a motion on this, I'll ask the clerk's office if we received any comment submitted regarding this application.
Chairman, there were none received.
Thank you so much. I'll ask if there's anyone who's attending who would like to offer comment on this. I do see one hand up among the attendees, and I'll have to confirm whether or not Mr. Galicia is wanting to comment on this project or is likewise looking for the bridge project. If we could promote him and allow Mr. Galicia, are you wanting to offer perspective on this particular application?
Absolutely, if I may.
Thank you, sir. Clerk's office, if you could please keep track of his 3 minutes, and I would invite you to state your name and your address for the record, and then share your thoughts with the committee.
My name is Edgar Galicia, and I am the Executive Director for Central Avenue Betterment Association, and my new address is 1303 Central Avenue. And I want to thank everybody, all of the commissioners, for speaking their minds. But more so for not just putting it down, but giving time for the owners of the project to speak their minds and to come to conclusions as how to make it happen and how to make it work. But I will say something, and I am very disappointed. None of you talk about the financials of the project. None of you talk about the challenging reality in the community. None of you talk about the jobs that this project could have or would have and could bring to our community and to our people. You're all talking about how it looks and what it looks like. All that beauty is in the mind of the beholder. And we live in an urban site that is very urban. Now, given time to work the details is more important than anybody's view of beauty. More important is to create jobs in our community than the colors these containers are built upon. These containers can be really beautified. And I've seen some beautiful constructions that you could not tell that they are containers, but the solidity and the cheap, or
You have 1 minute remaining.
the economy is very impacted by the use of these materials. So I please ask you to open your mind to the new times and the future of our country, because we're not the future. Our kids are the future, and they deserve a better future.
Thank you, Mr. Galicia. Very much appreciate your input. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to make a comment for the record. I do support this project. I did say that I support the project. I like the project. I think it's a unique perspective. My only concern was to make sure that the NVR was in agreement with that, and hearing that they were, I still support that project. I like it. I think for the reasons that Mr. Galicia has indicated, but I also want to make sure that the in-district commissioner has a chance to weigh in on it. Having said that, I'm in full support of it. And I understand the different perspectives concerning the trailers. I certainly have no inhibitions about that. I think that it will bring a very unique attraction to that area of town. So having said that, I just want to make sure for the record it was known that I do support that project. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I will say, from my perspective, we find ourselves always in a funny little position here when we're chairing these standing committees, trying to facilitate and get everybody else input and not drive our own opinion or agendas on this. I do like the funkiness of it, and I do think that it would really offer an opportunity for opening up even more growth around it. So I have no problem with it. Having said that, however, it has to fit into a commercial area that already exists, that has property owners and employers who are already there and already conducting their business. And I want to make sure that as best we can, this new does not push out the old, but in fact, as Mr. Galicia pointed out, we can have a conversation where we can blend it as seamlessly as possible. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say good evening to Mr. Galicia, who I know always has the best interest of his community at heart. I appreciate his comments. I also want to say that we, this committee, are always looking at how something looks for the very reasons that Chairman McKiernan just stated. So that is part of our job. We have not said no to the possibility of new jobs. And I think everybody who's mentioned, offered comments tonight wants to see good development, but we also want to see reasonable cohesion. And I still think giving additional time for the consideration of this project would be a good thing, So just want to make sure that it's understood, we're not saying no to the project per se, but seeking additional opportunity to look at the how and how it may be developed, and giving due reference to the in-district commissioner. So having said that, I move to delay further action by this committee on the property proposal for 3119 Strong Avenue for one more month, specifically to allow the in-district commissioner to meet with the developer, and then they will talk as they will. So that is my motion. Thank you again, Mr. Galicia.
Walters, second.
There is a motion and a second to hold this over for 1 month and to consider it again at our next meeting. Seeing no other committee members wanting to offer opinion or ask a question, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Roll call: Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you so much. Mr. Knapp, that exhausts my list of option agreements, and I show only one more item, and that is a yard extension. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner, that is correct.
All right, take it away.
All right, so they're requesting 627 Shawnee Road. They currently own 625 Shawnee Road. The frontage on this lot is 12 feet. So this would be truly an unbuildable lot. Here's a picture of it. You can probably see the lot is based on this driveway. So the house is already built on the house, built on the lot, and they're maintaining it currently. So that's pretty much concludes what I got to say.
12 feet. Does any member of the committee have a comment or a question or a motion for Mr. Knapp?
Walters, move for approval.
Johnson, second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. I'll just check with the clerk. Have we received any communication about this application?
No, there were none received, Chair.
And I'll ask if anyone in attendance would like to offer comment on this application. Seeing no hands raised, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call: Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you, committee. Mr. Knapp, double check me on this. I don't show any other items on our agenda.
That is it, Commissioner.
All right. With that being the case, we have no further business. This meeting is adjourned. I'll turn Zoom over to Commissioner Burrows for Economic Development and Finance.
Thank you, Commissioner McKiernan. And I did see that our BPU board member, Jeff Bryant, has been promoted to participant. So with that, we'll go ahead and before I call the meeting to order, I do want to announce that due to COVID-19, some committee members, staff, and the public are attending remotely via Zoom or by phone. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak to the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. And due to COVID-19 requirements, in-person public comment has been suspended unless otherwise required by law. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. I will now call the meeting to order, and the Economic Development Finance Standing Committee, I want to wish everyone welcome this evening, and I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Aye. Here. And Tiffany, you're muted.
My apologies. Bryant,
Here.
Walters,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Townsend,
Here.
McKiernan,
Here.
Burrows.
Here. Thank you, committee. It's nice to have a full committee this evening. And committee, for this evening, we do have 4 items that are all action items, but our first order of business is to approve the minutes. And those minutes are from January 4th and the February 1st meetings. And I believe Commissioner Townsend, if there's any questions in reference to the minutes, please let us know. And if not, I would entertain a motion.
This is Bryant. Move to approve.
There's been a motion.
Walters, second.
Motion has been made and a second. I would ask the clerk, please call roll.
Just 1 second, Commissioner, if I could jump in here real quick.
Yes.
It looks
Yes,
like
please.
Commissioner Townsend does have her hand raised.
Okay. She does. Commissioner Townsend.
Commissioner Townsend, you're muted.
Tiffany, I do not see her picture to see if she's trying to.
She's still currently muted at this time. I don't have the ability to unmute her.
Commissioner Townsend?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm having some difficulties. I did have a correction that I would like to request be made to the January 4th, 2021 minutes, Mr. Chairman. On page 5 of the written minutes, in the middle of that page, in the comments attributed to me, there is a sentence that reads, and I quote, "The language appeared to lead to state that, comma, I guess several years ago, we anticipated an increase, period," end quote. I believe the word lead, as it appears, L-E-A-D, should be me. I believe that's what I said there. So I would like to have those minutes reviewed and the correction made if appropriate.
Okay. Committee, are there any objections to the correction of the minutes?
No, Mr. Chair.
Seeing none, Commissioner Townsend, if you want to, there's been a motion and a second. If you want to make a substitute motion to approve the minutes with your corrections, I would entertain that substitute motion if the second of the original motion is willing to allow a substitute.
Okay, so do you need, Mr. Chairman, do you need, what do you need me to do? Does that motion need to be withdrawn, or I make an amended motion, or what is appropriate here?
Commissioner Townsend, you can make a substitute motion that the changes be identified and those changes made, and the approval of the committee will, if there has to be a second to the substitute, but usually we ask the second of the original motion to pull their second, and you can come out with a whole new motion. But if you want to do a substitute motion, you just do a substitute motion.
All right, well, I would like to make the substitute motion that the minutes as presented for January 4th, 2021 be held over for the opportunity by our clerk's office to review the language that I've just read into the record for my recommended correction.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second that. Walters.
Okay. So if I understand, just for clarification, the January minutes are satisfactory. It's the February minutes that you want to hold over. Is that correct?
The January 4th minutes are the ones that I'm asking for correction.
Thank you for that correction. I had it just backwards. So the motion is to hold over the January 4th minutes and approve the February 1st minutes.
That is correct.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. I would ask clerk, please call a roll.
Roll call, Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. Thank you, Commissioner Townsend. All right. Now that the minutes have been approved, we'll get on with resolution item number 1. That's the BPU loan through the KDHE, the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. And I believe this is going to be presented this evening by Lori Austin, the BPU Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Commissioner. This is Debbie Johnsher, Deputy Chief Financial Officer. I'll go ahead and start it, and then I'll turn it over to BPU. So the item you have tonight is a resolution authorizing the Board of Public Utilities to obtain a loan from the Kansas Public Water Supply Fund administered by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. The amount of the loan is going to be $25 million. As you said, BPU staff are on call to give a presentation. So I'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to Lori Austin, Chief Financial Officer for BPU, to talk about the loan.
Okay. Wonderful.
Thank you, Debbie.
The committee.
This is Lori Austin, Chief Financial Officer for the BPU. Tonight we'll provide a little bit of details on the KDHE loan, as well as the financing for the infrastructure projects and what we'll be using the money for. So with me tonight I have Chris Stewart, who is the BPU's Director of Civil Engineering, Kathy Peters, she's with Kutek and Rock and is our legal counsel for the BPU on this loan. Also available is Steve Green, the Executive Director of Water Operations, who's available to answer any questions. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Chris Stewart for the presentation.
Welcome to committee, Mr. Stewart. I believe he is muted.
Yes, are you able to meet?
Debbie, are they phoning in or are they on a Zoom?
This is Steve Green. Chris is going to come to my office. He's having trouble.
Okay.
Can you share screen? Okay.
We'll all find our hot spots.
One second. We are getting ready to share the screen on my computer. Can you see the screen now? This is Chris Stewart.
We can see the screen and we can actually hear someone. So
Okay, well, I apologize for that. I think we got an email this afternoon that they was working on our telephone system. So I think that maybe that had something to do with the fact that I couldn't get on and you couldn't hear what I was saying. But let me just introduce myself again. My name is Chris Stewart. I'm the Director of Civil Engineering here at the BPU. And my primary function is to really provide civil engineering support to our water department. And let me start by thanking Lori for the introduction too, and saying good evening, good afternoon to all of the commissioners that are part of the Economic Development and Finance Committee, and to the chairman. Also want to thank the UT staff for helping us getting this started, and also all others that are participating in the Zoom meeting. As always, I think we're grateful to have an opportunity as BPU employees to present information concerning projects that we are looking forward to doing. And this afternoon, I'm going to review the capital improvement projects that we are asking for approval to fund with KDHE SRF loan funds. I think Kathy will talk more about the SRF fund process and kind of get into that in more details. And my objective is to kind of give you an overview of the projects. Before I get started with going into more details on each project, I want to give you a little background of BPU water facilities just to give you that information. We have one water treatment plant, the Nearman Water Treatment Plant has a capacity of 72 million gallons per day. We have 2 horizontal collector wells, and each collector well can provide 40 million gallons per day of capacity. We have 3 pumping stations, 3 ground storage reservoirs, 3 elevated tanks. We have approximately 1,000 miles of pipeline, and we serve that through 6 pumping districts in our water distribution system. The next slide kind of provides you a little bit of an overview of all the projects that we want to fund with the KDHE loan money. And on this particular slide, I've kind of titled the project and then also the dollar amount for that particular project and what we are anticipating in terms of the years that we will start design, and we'll also hopefully get it constructed during that time frame. Now, keep in mind that each one of these projects we've presented to our board. We're not each one of them, but a number of these we've presented to our board. And these presentations probably have lasted anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes just talking about those projects. So I'm trying to scale this information down to a reasonable time frame to provide you enough education on each project that there's an opportunity at the end to talk about this and ask any question that you might have on each one of them. The first project that we're looking at is a 7 million gallon reservoir. It's an Argentine, what we call an Argentine pumping district. And that's located at 14th and Lawrence. And currently we have estimated the project cost to be $10 million with an anticipated time frame to begin design work this year and then hopefully get it finished by the end of 2023. The next project that we are going to review is the replacing aging water distribution systems. We have allocated approximately $9 million for this work and anticipate the time frame to be from 2021 to 2024. The third project is a transmission main, which is going to be a 24-inch or a 30-inch water main that is basically at 90th and Parallel and extends west to I-435 and France Family Drive. We've estimated the cost to be $2 million and the time frame to be 2021 through 2023. The fourth project is the electrical improvements at the Nearman Water Treatment Plant and our pumping station with an estimated cost of $1.5 million and a time frame between 2022 and 2023. The last project is to replace a 24-inch main at 12th Street and the Candace River at an estimated cost of $2.5 million and a time frame from 2021 to 2023. I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about each one of these projects. This slide provides you a view of the existing 4 million gallon reservoir that's at the same location as the 12 million gallon reservoir. And this is at 14th and Lawrence. And this is typically what we use in our ground storage reservoirs, this type of a structure. It's a wire round concrete structure. And like I said, this one's 4 million gallon. The one that we want to replace is a 12 million gallon. And the majority of that existing structure is underground. There's only a roof section that you will see because of the hydraulics involved with the 2 reservoirs. Just a little background on that particular 12 million gallon reservoir. It was constructed and installed in around 1920. And in 2011, we had to take it out of service. And the reason we had to take it out of service was because of the structural deficiency of the concrete. We had a lot of cracking and breaking in the roof system, and then also internal wise, we had beams and columns that were delaminating. the concrete was delaminating, so even a section of one of the beams had fallen into the reservoir itself. The next project that I want to talk about is the replacement of the small diameter water mains. This slide kind of gives you a kind of a picture of an area. It's the Highland Crest area. And you'll see all these little red triangles in this particular area. Well, those triangles represent water main breaks that have occurred in this neighborhood by itself over the last 25 years. And in this particular area, it's mainly 4-inch cast iron main. And so we want to target the water mains that are smaller, that are 4-inch and 2-inch. And we started this particular program in 2014, and we received approval from you all in 2014 to go out and get funding for about $10 million worth of water main replacements. And that's been a very successful program for us. We replaced about 18 miles of pipeline, and we reduced our water main breaks in the overall system by about 100 breaks per year since the start of that program. And that saves us about $200,000 to $300,000 a year in revenue, not revenue, but in costs that are associated with these main breaks. And we also want to let you know that this area for main replacement projects is primarily east of I-635. And we've broken up that area into about 18 separate areas. And we look at the water mains that are in the worst possible condition, and we allocate money to those and do the design work. And those are the areas that we look at. And that kind of sums up that particular project in terms of the main replacement projects. This is just kind of giving you a view of what these lines look like. This is a 4-inch cast iron main, and this is the type of deterioration that you see over the years. The third project I want to give you a little background on is this 24-inch transmission main. It goes from 90th and Parallel right there by St. Margaret's, or not, St. Providence, out to extends west to France Family Drive. But what you're seeing on this particular slide, there's a lot of information here, so let me just kind of talk to you a little bit about all the different colors. You'll see on the legend, there's a color chart that shows kind of what these pressure zones, these are our pumping zones that we have in the entire system. So we have down in the southern, south of on the bottom of the page, south of the Kansas River is the Argentine pumping district. And then as you move up toward the top of the page, you have a kind of a magenta color that we call the direct system. And then you have a light blue color that we call our central system. And then out toward the west, we have our parallel system and Walcott system. So those are all different pumping districts that we pump water to. And the red lines that you're seeing are all the major transmission lines that get water from our Nearman water treatment plant. They're at the top of the page by the Missouri River. And it pumps all the water to the pumping districts where we have ground storage reservoirs, and then the pumps in the pumping stations pump it out into the district. So what we have here, if you look at the parallel elevated tank, you can kind of see the outline of I-435 on the left of the screen, and you can see the speedway kind of loop and that type of stuff. But you see the dash line that we're showing where it shows new 24-inch transmission main. Well, we have one transmission line that goes out to serve the western half west of I-435. So we need to get some more redundancy and resiliency in that particular area of our system. So that's what this 24-inch transmission main will do for us. It's very critical to provide service to the western portion of our service area. This is kind of more of a zoomed in aerial view of the actual transmission main, and kind of what we're anticipating as a route right now, starting up here at 90th and Parallel. In front of the hospital, we have a transmission main that comes in at that point. And then we'll tie into that and go to the south and then move to the west and go by the soccer fields and also kind of cut through the old Slitterbahn area until we hit another transmission line that feeds our tower that's just west of I-435. The next project that we want to fund is the 1.5 million for electrical improvements. And this is just a slide that shows kind of on the top our pumping stations, the Robert L. Milan pumping station at 63rd and Sturnage, and then you have the pumping station at 55th and Parallel, and then to the right of that is the high service pumps that's actually at our Nearman water treatment plant. And then below that, you kind of see a picture of the electrical switchgear at these stations, and then our variable speed drives that we have at each one of our pump stations. So we're concentrating on electrical equipment that is really outdated. It's been installed since the start of these facilities, and it's no longer really supported once you get into variable frequency drives and this type of instrumentation and electrical equipment. They really support that for about 10 to 15 years and more. And then after that, you have to start replacing the VFDs. But on the electrical switchgear, you can see that some of that was installed in the original pump station installation. The last project that I want to talk about is the 12th Street River Crossing. It's a 24-inch transmission main that crosses underneath the Kansas River at 12th Street. And it is very critical to our operation in terms of providing water south of the Kansas River into our Argentine district. And it also plays an important role into providing gravity water back to our direct system, which is the main portion of that's east of I-635. So a little background here is we've got 3 crossings on the Kansas River. One is at Turner Diagonal. It is a channel crossing underneath the river. It's a 24-inch main that was installed in 2002. We have a bridge crossing on 18th Street. It's a 24-inch main that was installed in 1959. And we're anticipating that will need to be replaced approximately in 2025 with the KDOT bridge project that they're going to rebuild. And then our last one is this channel crossing. So we just have these 3 crossings. So if one's down, then we're down to 2. And this is a critical thing for our operations to maintain 3 of these at any time. And here's an aerial view showing how this 24-inch main was installed underneath the river, and just kind of giving you an idea of where it's at, where it's located at. And here's a little background of the information on that particular crossing. It was installed in 1940. The pipeline, the center line of the pipeline was at about 706 elevation, and the riverbed at that time was about 719. So in 1940, we had about 12 feet of cover over the top of this water main. And they used restrained joint piping to install this water main. So as part of the levee project, the Corps of Engineers, we've been working with the Corps and with the UG on the levee project, and the Corps had told us and talked to us that they had just completed a bathymetric survey of the river channel in that area and said, you guys might want to check your water main crossing. And so we actually did a joint venture with UG, with Trent Fulgesong, to do some bathymetric survey on our water main and also in some of the gravity sewers that are crossing the river for the unified government. So we joint ventured and we had someone come in and do a bathymetric survey. And we also followed that up with some divers on our water line. The riverbed at the crossing now has really been degraded substantially. So the elevation now is at around 703 to 706, which is about where our water main is. And we have 140 feet of pipe that's exposed. We have 30 feet of pipe that's been undermined with about 2 foot of separation from the riverbed. and 32 foot of pipe that's about 1 to 1.5 foot of separation from the riverbed. This is kind of a picture of what the sonar and the sounding of the river channel looks like. And the green represents 703 elevation. And that's about where our water main is in that particular elevation range. And then you'll see the red square that shows where our water main crosses, the approximate location, and then the bridge there in red. And this is a more detailed picture that they actually get from their sonar bathymetric survey. They're able to pick up the bottom of the channel, and you can see by this picture, you can vaguely see the water main itself and where it was exposed and how the sonar picked it up. And you can actually see little white lines that are on the picture. Those are actually joints that are in the pipeline, and they pick that up with a lot of detail. So of course, we wanted to follow that up with divers to make sure that what they were showing us on sonar was actually what was happening. So in early January, we retained a company that specializes in rehabbing and installation and inspection of underwater structures. And they came in and basically confirmed exactly what the sonar was talking about, the amount of exposure, and really the fact that the water main's hanging kind of in the air, not in the air, but underwater without any support underneath it. Thank goodness they put restrained joint piping there, so it's held out pretty good. So that kind of goes through the projects. I'm going to talk a little bit about our proposed schedule for the KDHE loan. We submitted the information to our board in the January 20th board meeting, and then we followed up and asked for, we followed up in February and asked for a public hearing to get approval for a resolution for a public hearing. We completed that. We had our public hearing on March the 17th, and now we're here presenting the information to the Finance Committee, asking for approval to proceed, and then ultimately we will go to the UG Commission for approval. Here's just some general information about the loan parameters, the current loan parameters, and of course they don't lock in until we actually sign the documents. But right now you can see that it's $25 million loan. We have a 30-year loan period, and in the past, KDHE only allowed a 20-year loan period. So this 30-year period really fits in better with, you know, the lifespan of these particular projects that we're doing. And the interest rate is at 1.56%, which is an excellent interest rate for us. And we projected the first payment to be in August of 2024. We'll have 60 payments twice per year. The projected annual payment is just over $1 million for a $25 million loan. So I want to talk a little bit about the our current debt schedule and the proposed debt schedule with the $25 million loan. You'll see at the top at the legend, the current schedule is the blue shaded bars, and then the red is the proposed debt schedule with the new $25 million loan. And what I want you to really concentrate here is just looking at 2020 and 20, you'll see that the debt schedule, the current debt schedule is about we spend about $12 million a year for the water side. And you can see that the blue line is starting to drop in 2021, 2022, 2023. And then we have a significant drop in 2024 from about 12 million all the way down to somewhere around $8.5 to $9 million. So with that, that's when our new debt payments with this $25 million loan will occur. So you can see that the addition of $1 million of debt service will only kick us up to about $10 million a year, which is still $2 million less than our current debt schedule. So that's kind of where we're at with the current debt and the proposed debt that we're asking to get approval for. Well, I think that kind of summarizes the projects and the debt schedules. And, if you have any questions, I can take them now, or if you want to wait for Kathy to go ahead and provide her presentation in terms of the process, I can wait and just answer questions at that time too.
I think we'll go ahead and ask questions now of you, and then we can ask our questions of Kathleen separate. So at this particular time, Mr. Stewart, I would ask, are there any members of the committee with any questions? I don't see, Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing, if you could go back one slide to that amortization schedule, that one. Doesn't this assume that you're not going to take out any other debt? You're just paying off the debt you currently have, and there won't be additional need in future years for additional debt. I always see these curves, and it's like it never seems to pan out this way. So doesn't the blue line or the red line assume there's no new debt issued?
Yes, Commissioner, you're correct. As far as the blue lines, the only thing that we're representing right now is our current debt schedule plus the $25 million. But I will say that this is part of a cost of service study that we just completed a year or two ago, where we look at our master plan and we look at our 5-year projection for capital improvements projects, and we hold to that cost of service study. So at this point in time, this is what the cost of service study had recommended in projects that we needed to get done and over a 5-year period. So yes, in another 3 years, when we come back and we do another, or 5 years or whatever, typically we do a 3-year cost of service study. If we come back and identify other projects that need to be done, then we will have to come back and talk about a revised debt schedule. But in all honesty, this $25 million will last us for 5 years. This is what we've got in our cost of service, and this is what we anticipate doing. And, these are the projects that we probably couldn't add any more projects on and be successful in getting these completed in the fashion that we need to.
I appreciate that. If your infrastructure is aging and is in need of attention as the UG infrastructure is, I certainly anticipate we're going to be back having this conversation more than once as we go down the road. And I agree that it's necessary, but sometimes I look at these graphs and I ask, why do we even put that up? Because we know there's going to be additional loans for additional capital maintenance and improvement over time. What was the outcome of the public hearing?
The board approved our resolution, and there was no comments from anyone from the public.
So the BPU board is supportive of this?
That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have at this time.
I see no other hands from the participants. Committee, if there's no more questions of Mr. Stewart, I would ask that we hear from Kathleen Von Atchen or Debbie Johnson.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Burrows. This is Kathy Peters representing the BPU in this matter. I'm with Kutak Rock. And your question, Mr. McKiernan, fit right in with what I was going to tell you about the process. As Mr. Stewart indicated, the BPU spent a great deal of time going over these projects with the BPU board and also got the preliminary approval from KDHE that the loan would be one that they would grant if it was completely applied for. There was an initial application, and then the BPU board authorized the setting of the public hearing. They did that at a meeting in February. The public hearing was held March 17th. As Mr. Stewart indicated, there were no comments at the public hearing. So next steps was that the BPU said, fine, staff, go ahead and complete the application with KDHE. And that's what the BPU staff is in the process of doing. There's one more approval process at the BPU side, and that's the actual approval of the loan agreement. This loan will be paid for from utility revenues. Because it's payable from utility revenues, the KDHE rules require that there be a bond insurance as well, since there's no general obligation backing up for this, and obviously no unified government funds will go into this. So the two additional approvals that are needed is that of the unified government, that its administrative agency, the BPU, should borrow this $25 million from KDHE. And then once the loan agreement has been prepared and agreed to with KDHE and the bond insurer, it will go back one more time to the BPU board for their approval of the loan agreement. But at this point, the BPU board has said it's fine to proceed with this and step forward and go talk to the unified government next. And so that's why we're here. And I'll be open for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Kathy. Stewart, Mr. Stewart, who do you have speaking next? Okay. Committee.
I don't think we have any further, Lori or Angela, let me know, but I think that wraps us up.
Thank you, Ms. Peters. The committee, any questions of Ms. Peters or Mr. Stewart? I see no hands. At this time, I would ask the clerk if there were any comments from the public.
Chair, there were no comments received.
Thank you. So hearing no comments from the committee, no questions, none from the public. This is an action item that we must take a vote on. So hearing that, I would ask that clerk please call roll. I'd entertain a motion first to approve and then please call roll.
Walters, I move for approval.
McKiernan, second.
Thank you, committee. 25-year loan at 1.56% interest with the state as a partner is a pretty darn good deal. And if to address the infrastructure needs of our community, kudos to the BPU for working this out and working with our Kansas Department of Health and Environment. So we do have a motion and a second. I would ask clerk please call roll.
Roll call. Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. That takes us to item number 2, the Kaw River Bridge project. And I'll ask Catherine Carter to present the proposed project this evening.
Thank you very much. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. There we try to make it a slideshow. There we go. Okay. Thank you very much. I know that we have come in front of you all many times for information only over the last year. We're really excited to bring this forward tonight for an actual action vote for the Cooperative and Development Agreement. This is the agreement that really does provide the overall structure for the greater project overall. And then if successful and approved, then we would come back with future kind of more procedural portions of the project. So, I think a lot of people have heard me and others speak about this, so I'll be somewhat brief, but I did want to remind everyone kind of where this came from, that this is a kind of generally a larger kind of plan to reinvent the riverfront in general, provide access to the river. This is something that, many cities across our country have been kind of going in this trend because for so long, rivers in the United States were really solely viewed as ways to, for transport, for commerce. So what we're seeing is, really across the country, those cities that have embraced their riverfront and done real investment into it, then they really do see quite a return on their investment, which is something that we like to also get in on as we have a beautiful river and an area that we just aren't really able to access at this time. In most cases because of railroad, but in others because there just is nothing there that would actually draw you to the river. So with that, just going to orient you all. So this is kind of up at the top, you can see kind of where downtown is. Then you've got kind of the state line running right here, if you can see my cursor. And the bridge in question is right here at the bottom of the screen. We've already, previously come to you all with a different project, with the Yards project that Flaherty and Collins is doing. That would be the apartments right here. This is really an interesting time, I think, for our riverfront, as there's a lot of different synergies happening. So between adding multifamily, which is currently in the works, then our nearly $500 million levee raise project, which is going to bring nearly 20 miles of levee trail. There are a number of things that we're really trying to kind of focus into this one time. Additionally, the Armourdale Master Plan, so we've been giving a lot of thought to how this bridge project and other proposed projects with the levees and other riverfront projects can actually be that kind of catalyst, and that really does draw people across the river, into Armourdale, into our downtown, into Central Avenue. And we think there's a lot of promise here for all of those things to happen. And the bridge project, as we are going to discuss tonight, is one of those that I think does a lot. So as I mentioned, a lot of different synergies. This is a project that, it's a bridge that's from 1905. It's blighted. It's really a safety concern, honestly, at this point. Has not been used since the 1970s when the stockyards kind of went away. And so this is really an interesting project. And I credit Mr. Zeller and his team for kind of really thinking kind of outside the box, and coming up with a plan that can really reuse this. I mean, it truly is creative reclamation, and getting rid of blight in a very creative way that will hopefully, provide a great attraction, and something that not only KCK, but the state, as well as the whole metro area can be proud of. So with that, I am actually going to turn it over to Mr. Zeller to give a project overview. Mike, are you on?
I don't see that Mr. Zeller is participating.
So I sent an email. His name is now Mike Ladden for this purpose of this meeting. If you could promote Mr. Ladden, that would be great. All right, Mike, you are promoted.
He's been promoted.
Great. If you want to unmute and just let me know when to go to the next slide.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Catherine?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion. I'm here with one of our partners, Mike Ladden. My name is Michael Zeller, 15 East 68th Street, Kansas City, Missouri. And I'm here as the president of Flying Trust LLC with two partners, Mike Ladden and John McGurk. So I want to first thank the commissioners for being here tonight, and also for all of you coming down to visit the bridge personally. That is, of course, a view of the lovely Kansas River looking north at Strawberry Hill, then the lovely steeples there that we might be celebrating in new ways very soon. That's what got this all started, was a boat trip on the Kansas River, realizing just how lovely it is. Next slide, please. My partners and I leased this bridge. It is in Armourdale, connects both sides of the Kaw. Obviously, it was a big part of the Stockyards District. And we thought it was a place to put a small event space initially, and with the egress in and out. So we leased this bridge, which is presently owned by Kansas City, Missouri, although there is a transfer mechanism in place. Soon after we leased that bridge, though, we were contacted by representatives of the unified government who were working on addressing some trails inequity, building trails 4 miles coming from the Procter & Gamble plant all atop of the levee district all the way up to this bridge, and had made some changes in plans and realizing it might make more sense if they crossed that trail at our bridge. And that got us scratching our heads. How can a railroad bridge, very beefy, inspected, it is robust and can handle the loads according to a MARC study, but how could it serve as both a public crossing and as a destination as we were initially thinking? And that set us, of course, on this partnership path with our UG partners, and along a long path with local engineering firms and architectural firms to the proposal that we have now. Next slide, please. There you see the path that I was describing. The bridge is in green. By crossing and running north on the east side, the UG would avoid, there's a wall on much of the west side. It's not very interesting to ride a bike behind a wall. The bridges tend to be lower on that side, which requires additional engineering around, and there's a rail yard, or the reasons that were explained to us for wanting that partnership. You see that? That's where the river gets as close to Missouri as it ever does, as it heads north. Next slide, please. That's just a look at the Kaw from the north bank of the Kaw. I think that's the southern tip of that island. Next. This is a group of fun folks I've been on a few times. CABA has been organizing a Wednesday night ride on the levee top to help the community recognize what an asset it is. I think that's one of those low bridges they're talking about right there. Next. Again, on the Kaw, it's a nice ride on those levees because you're up high and you get a nice view of the river, and you can look down into Armourdale as well. Next. So this is the partnership solution, the structural solution that we've come up with, and that is really what's interesting is to create new land, if you will, by adding big, heavy steel cantilevers off of both sides of this stout railroad bridge. You see there's 3 trusses. Each of the 2 trusses on the right are 100 yards long. There's a smaller truss on the left. Altogether, it's 700 feet long. The scale of this thing really shouldn't be underestimated. On the lower deck well, first off, it's that golden line across. It's a public crossing. It's 18 feet wide all the way across, except for on the south side of the entertainment district. It's a 13-foot wide path. People will 365 days a year be able to make their way across this bridge unimpeded. We are going to have a lot of children and people on the bridge, so it will be a dismount zone, though, for safety reasons. On the lower deck there, you can see there's on that central truss, that is the trailhead. It's probably the first trailhead that we've been able to find any place that's in the middle of a river. We'll have 11 restrooms, drinking fountain, bike ranks, bike tools, acres of seating, and a lot of private enterprise amenities that people can take advantage of if they choose to or not. It's kind of like Union Station. It's an open public space. People can wander in and out. You don't have to take advantages of those amenities. But if you want to get a lunch or a cup of coffee, you're always welcome to do that. On the top deck these are steel and concrete decks. And the lower deck is 80 yards long. The top deck is 70 yards long. So this is a big area here. And it's a 13-foot cantilever off of both sides of the bridge. The top deck forms a rainproof ceiling for the lower deck, but it's all open air. And up top, we have an event space, an open veranda, more public restrooms, a second coffee shop and bar. And so that sums up what's going on in the center of the bridge. And on the right is a feature that we're really excited about, a community zone with 9-foot cantilevers off of both sides of the bridge, serving things, really serving the community's needs there. Free Wheels for Kids is going to have a space there to wrench bicycles and to leave on bike rides. We're going to have a community kitchen, and we've been talking to all kinds of independent operators in Kansas City, Kansas, from soul food to pizza to street tacos, in organizing them with thematic things happening on the bridge. We're also in conversations with 2 different groups that own kayaks and canoes and want to teach kids and the general public how to canoe on the river. And the cause a lot better to learn on because it's so much more calm than the Missouri River. And there's talk and some consideration, I know, amongst the UG community about bringing staircases down or some kind of connection to that waterfront. And we want to provide a kiosk on the bridge for people to, rent those small craft out. Let's go ahead and go next, Catherine. So this is a front door at both sides, welcoming the trails. Come in on the levee tops, and that's a dismount zone, and then you walk your bike across or carry on by foot. Bridget Job, who I think was sending a letter, she has been calling this bridge the front door to Kansas, which sounds pretty good. It's about 100 feet from the state line. It's a 1-minute walk from Hy-Vee Arena at the western end, or at the eastern end, excuse me. Next. That is the looking east toward Hy-Vee Arena. That's the public walkway on that southern cantilever. Next. And its mirror image on the north side. You see there's more seating there. I liken the experience if you're coming across the metro on the Trails Network to riding your bike in an Italian city, and you come upon a piazza and there's a lot of life there, and there's tables and people drinking coffee and maybe some street performers, and you dismount and you walk through, and it's a pleasant thing, and you can choose to stay and read a book or get dinner, or just going through. That's kind of what this is here. Next. So we have really advanced the designs over the last 8 months. You see the double-decker steel and concrete nature of this, with the top deck providing a waterproof ceiling for the lower deck. Up top at the left of your screen is an event space, and it rises to the very top of the bridge. There is a roof on it, and what you see there is sailcloth that on the vertical sides of the bridge can be lowered or raised according to weather. That could be for weddings, corporate events, charity fundraisers. And then to the right of it is, you see some buildings there. That's another coffee shop, bar, a staging area for catering, more public restrooms, and then an open air veranda up top. Next, please. That's as viewed from the bank. You see the event space walls are in their closed position. Maybe it's a windy evening, or maybe it's got a little bit of rain. Next. And there's lights. We'll light the bridge. This is from within that top deck event space. 90% of the week, it's just going to be open air public space like Union Station, but on a Saturday night, folks can rent that out, that space up top, for an event. It's a bit cathedral-like. It's 35 to 40 feet height. You see on the sides outside of the structure of the bridge is translucent polycarbonate roof material. Next, it'll hold about 350 people, and that's a dance floor in the center. And that's one final view of this entertainment district at the center in action. And notice the top deck is in the open position there. Next. And this is the community zone at the western entrance. Again, a guest kitchen, and shelters for a variety of mostly youth-serving organizations whose mission it is to do things that also activate the trails and the river and the bridge and that environment down there. So biking, boating, painting, all of those kinds of things. Next. And that's the view in looking east at the community zone. We're going to give it a different name. Oh, so there's kind of a call awakening. Catherine alluded to all of these things that are happening at once. And it's kind of happening across the country, riverfront development. is really a proven development model. People like water. They like running water even more. Separate from the bridge project, but related, a group of investors have bought a riverboat, very similar to this one, and are planning to dock it at the base of the bridge, not quite under it, but a little south, especially, or a little north on the western side, and use it as a floating event space and coffee shop. If we can get the proper permissions, we plan to take it out onto the river as well. Next. And here, some more examples of the call awakening. We've been bringing a lot of people down to the river. COVID slowed us down a little bit, but we did manage to do this at a socially distanced, cost social is what we were calling it back in October. And you can see the great mix of organizations that were just participating. People really, really having fun and wanting to share this great piece of natural, this powerful piece of natural beauty that flows through our city. It's over 100 yards wide. When you get down on the Kaw, it's surprisingly big. And it's very quiet down there because the levees protect it from the city noise. Next. Yeah, that's on the Kaw right there, back in October. Next. And another view. I think that's actually from a year earlier, but you can see downtown KCK in the background. The Kansas City Boat Club always has their teenagers, the crew boats, you know, the long skinny with all the rowers on board. And of course, we'll have kayaks and canoes, bikes on the levees. We really want to activate this natural corridor that flows right through Kansas City, Kansas, right there in the heart of the metro. Next. And he was having fun. That's a pretty typical response. Everybody comes off of those boats with a big grin on their face. So what we're showing you is a pretty ambitious phase one, and it will be the first destination bridge and public crossing, public trailhead in the country. But really, we're planning more activity later on. This is Steve Fouch, the fellow that reclaimed Hyde-Kemper Arena, hung a floor in the middle and turned it into a youth sports center. His plan next is to build a ropes course on the roof. And during this conversation, we were up there talking about having a third party culminate that with a zip line that would go across the state line and across the river. It's not something either of us want to operate. We would work with a third party operator for that. We got kayak and canoe rental, as I mentioned. We're taking a serious look in about the year 7 or 8 about putting a sit down restaurant on top of one of those heavy duty lift gates. And of course, there's a lot more gardens, art, and activities. Julian Zagutagoita, the president of the Nelson Atkins Museum, and Dana, who leads Arts KC, along with Monica, and Armourdale Renewal have agreed to sit on a disbursement fund at the Community Foundation. There's folks interested in helping us put vertical gardens and art and other kinds of educational activities on this bridge once we get it going. And those folks have agreed to help guide that process. Next. So is all this real? I mean, can you really do this on a bridge? I think that was a fair question. The Unified Government and the Secretary of Commerce for Kansas together funded a national planning firm that runs numbers on a lot of projects called HR&A. I believe they're based in New York to answer a lot of these questions. They are most famous for, they run numbers, but they also are most famous for planning the Highline Trail in New York City, which is quite famous and of course has triggered a lot of economic development there. And their conclusions in a nutshell are that, yes, indeed, this will achieve the UG's goal of serving as a kind of a keystone for trails on both sides of that levee there. It'll reclaim blight and it'll turn it into a negative, into a positive, really a destination. We think that NFL football cameras on the blimps are going to be pointing at this thing because it's just so unusual. It'll create about 65 jobs. Bridget Jobe estimates we'll have 360,000 visitors year one. She's the Kansas Director of Tourism. And it's a catalyst for a lot of things. Energy follows attention. All these folks from around the metro and even from farther away from that, they're going to be looking at the Kansas River. They're going to be traveling on down Kansas Avenue. It'll be a catalyst for a lot of good things. Energy follows attention. And they did affirm our revenue numbers that can be generated on the bridge are indeed enough to return the UG's investment. from a restricted tourism fund right now. That money will be paid back with interest. And also the UG has a revenue share, but I think Catherine's going to go into those details. And the final thing that the leader of the study said in a Zoom call with some commissioners back in November that really struck us is she said, one thing, this bridge is going to be one of the things that people think of when you say Kansas City. So, you know, we have Union Station, we have the Shuttlecocks, we got a lot of great things, and perhaps one day this bridge too will be on that short list. Is that it, Catherine? Let's see. Oh, that's just a slide to remind us that a lot of the cool things in cities around the country were once sort of forgotten areas, you know, an old shoe factory that was abandoned, a creek through the middle of the city that was very much unloved. I think there's plenty of other examples of these. And when you turn them into something fun, they end up being an important placemaking vehicle. Next. And that's it. America's first destination bridge. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. So that was a great overview, and I think we got to see some updated renderings that as Mike mentioned, you know, we've been working on this project for quite some time, but I think the really positive thing about that is not only has the project, the terms gotten better, but also the design has gotten better. So in particular, when he was referencing how the event space is now on the second deck, meaning, you know, that we will, you know, now ensure that the trail crossing is unimpeded. You know, I think there are a lot of really positive things here that we're going in the right direction, and taking that extra time has actually really improved the project on all sides. We just went over kind of what the project entails, but just to kind of review some of the things that we believe that this project would bring to our community. Net new taxes, you know, again, we're working with the Army Corps of Engineers to provide the trail network on the levees. This will just provide a really interesting and unique way to cross the river. We've got a couple other crossings, but you know, they're under highways or next to highway. You know, this is one that really is just so specific to the experience and to the bike pedestrian experience that it would be quite a draw, we think. Additionally, kind of that regional brand, increasing tourism, as well as attracting businesses, employees, and residents. You know, we also see that this is one of those things that will continue to kind of success begets other success. So with the multifamily that will be breaking ground over the next year, you know, having a lot of people on the Kansas side, you know, this will just, we believe, really catalyze and encourage future development on both sides of the river, but particularly kind of drawing people across over to Armourdale. And then, you know, last but certainly not least, you know, we all know that Wyandotte County does not rank very high, and actually it ranks incredibly low when you look at the state and health outcomes. And so providing fun, interesting ways for our KCK residents, Wyandotte County residents, to get outside and be active and improve their health and quality of life. So that includes being on the trail, renting a kayak or a canoe. This portion of the river is very calm, very easy to do so. You don't have to be an expert. You know, we think these are all really positive things that this project would bring to our community. So again, as Mike mentioned, I won't go super in depth in any of this, but because we did have a presentation by HRNA just a couple months ago where they went far more in depth in their review, but we did have the third party. We felt that was very necessary, as we are not experts in economic impact analyses for something on a bridge. So it's somewhat unique. But this third party came in who are experts in doing this type of kind of out of the box analyses, and really looked at what the revenue, the gross revenue, the annual visitors. I will say that all of the numbers that you'll see are based on a much more conservative 250,000 annual visitors. We would anticipate that would hopefully be the very, very low end. So we'd anticipate far more visitors throughout the year. But, you know, again, we want to make sure that the numbers that we are providing are realistic and are conservative, so that it is only upside. And we really believe that that's what we're presenting here today. So just to go over some of the financial aspects of this, we're looking at an overall total project cost of about $5 million. You can see that on the left side in the orange. On the blue side is kind of where that capital would come from. So Flying Trust would be going out and working to raise the additional funding. But I'm going to, of course, focus on that $2 million you see from the unified government. This really, I'd like you to think of this as it's really an investment in our riverfront development. So we believe, and this is what was born out of the HRNA estimates for their the amount of revenue that would be generated, is if we put a TIF district in place and took the incremental property and sales tax, as well as a 2% sales tax CID, that would raise sufficient money that in what we're actually anticipating to be about 12 or 13 years, that we would be fully repaid the $2 million with interest. Now, that's not incredibly fast, but it's also, you know, again, we're looking at basically the most conservative way of looking at this. So when we're thinking about the amount of taxes that we'd be receiving, the amount of sales that would be happening, you know, we're wanting to make sure that really any level of success will be paid back faster than the anticipated. We are anticipating a $75,000 upfront, a one-to-one match to a part of that $2 million for the final designs and construction documents. But then the remainder of the funding, which is obviously the vast majority of it, would be the last money in. So we're really talking about trying to figure out how to make sure that the funding that the unified government is providing is as safe as possible. Todd LaSala from Stinson, our outside counsel, will be speaking here in a minute about some of the deal structure and that risk mitigation in more detail. So in addition to the $2 million payback over that 12 to 15 years, there are estimated additional UG financial benefits. I took a snapshot of just 20 years. Again, this is estimated, but all, I would say, very conservative numbers. There would be annual rent, about, again, not a huge number, but this all adds up. So about $250,000 over the 20 years. We are talking about or put into the documents a revenue share that the better the bridge does, then kind of we all win. Additionally, once the TIF, once the $2 million is paid back, then we would terminate that TIF, and then the sales tax and property tax would just kind of flow as normal to the general fund. So this would be kind of years kind of 14 through 20. is what I'm showing there, which is a real significant amount of funds once it gets going. And then last but not least, there is actually a fiber conduit that goes across the bridge. And so we would retain some amount of lease payment through that. So in addition, again, to being repaid the $2 million with inflation, there would be an additional again, I would say minimum 2.4 million in additional financial benefits. I'm going to go just very briefly. There is, if anyone wants more information, there's an executive summary that does a great job of going far more in depth into a lot of these bridge terms, but just kind of giving a high level ownership. Currently, Kansas City, Missouri does own the bridge in a kind of bizarre twist, but we do have an agreement with them that at such a time that we are ready to move forward on this project and approvals have been received from the commission, then we would transfer that property ownership to the unified government for $1. It felt very important that if we were going to be investing unified government taxpayer money into this project, then we would really want to own that and really control the destiny along with Flying Trust as the master developer. Additionally, there'd be a ground lease and a management agreement, all part of the more kind of, it's a somewhat complex, but very secure structure that we've put in place in terms of the terms. Lease term would be 33 years with an option to renew for an additional 33. Rent, as I mentioned earlier, just under $10,000 a year. That would increase over time. And then, of course, the repayment and the revenue sharing. So if there was a ability to gain more than $2 million, there would be a 2% revenue share. If the bridge does great, which we hope it will, then it gets over 5 million, then that increases to 5%. Flying Trust would be the sole operator, then they would have subleases to the restaurants. And then, in terms of maintenance, this would be, while the vast majority of this bridge would actually be public space, would be the public trail. The Flying Trust would be taking maintenance responsibility for all of that, as well as the trailhead. So this would be a really unique location for a trailhead. This was something that we had anticipated with the levee trails, that this would be a great location for a trailhead. At that moment, we hadn't thought that it would be in the middle of the bridge. So really pretty exciting and different. So additionally, the bathrooms and lighting and other things that Mike discussed. First and foremost, we love all of the restaurants and the event space and all of that. But, first and foremost, this would be a public asset, would be publicly accessible, a public crossing, and really connect KCK and this location to the regional trail network, which is, I think, a really big deal, and will make this area really a catalyst and something that really focuses people and brings them down from all over. As well as public programming, we've made it so that the unified government would be able to use this property as well throughout the year. And then, like all good contracts, we have various events of default. Won't go into those, but all the things that you would imagine and many that you probably wouldn't. So to make sure that this is, again, mitigating risk at every turn for the unified government. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. LaSala from Stinson to discuss a little more about the deal structure and risk mitigation.
Sure. Thank you, Catherine. I'm Todd LaSala. I'm your outside counsel. You guys can hear me okay, right?
Right.
Good. I'm glad. Good evening. Catherine asked me to talk to you a little bit about some of the risk mitigation we did in this deal. This deal is it's unique in every possible way. That's also true of the legal structure. So I'm gonna really talk about two primary areas. One, the money, the investment the UG is making, and two, the ownership structure and why you've got leases and management agreements and all of that. Let's start with the money. Catherine did a very good job of summarizing the $5 million project, the UG's $2 million investment. Well, it's a little bit unusual for us to advance money in this way. So often our projects are TIFs and CIDs and you're just drawing on those. This is different in that we are advancing that $2 million. So what did we do to mitigate that risk and protect that risk? And you're probably asking yourselves, how can we be sure that we're going to get it back? Well, those are great questions. Questions that your staff wrestled with throughout the negotiation of this. Number one, we're careful about the conditions that we have in Article 3 of our development agreement about when we turn on the money. And for the most of this money, but for that $75,000 that Catherine talked about, it's kind of a pre-development advance, and there are conditions on that too. But for most of the money, $1.925 million, they have to satisfy all of the conditions before we go forward and allow access to that money. So you know that you've got a real project, they got their financing, everything's mature. This thing is going forward before we turn on most of the money. Secondly, our development agreements got in section 4.6 a draw request process. So it's not like you're going to just write them a check. They're going to submit to you as they progress with the project, draw requests to show you what they're spending the money on, what they need the money for, and we're going to sign off on each of those draw requests before we disperse those funds as and when they need them. Third, and Catherine talked about this, our primary source of repayment for the $2 million is a TIF and a CID, tax increment financing, 20-year life, based on both sales taxes and incremental property taxes, as well as a 2% sales tax CID. That's a 22-year life. Both of those, as Catherine talked about, HRNA looked at those two revenue streams and said that they think, even conservatively, we're likely to get paid back from those two sources in 12, 13, no more than 15 years. And all of that's good. And by the way, developer doesn't get any access to any of that money. That is all UG money, every dollar of it, until we're paid in full. Once we're paid in full, the TIF can terminate and go away. It won't exist anymore. We would allow the developer some access to CID money once we're paid in full, which provides them some incentive. But that's the primary source of the money. However, in the event that this thing doesn't pro forma the way HRNA thinks, despite the conservative assumptions, in a world where it's not generating TIF and CID money as fast as everybody would hope, and there are shortfalls about what we're supposed to get, the developer agrees to write us a check for the shortfalls. They stand behind it and they guarantee that in the event, and we set out an amortization schedule, we amortize the debt over 20 years, not the 22-year life of the CID, 20 years. And essentially, we're supposed to get about $10,000 a month from these sources. In the event that it's 8, the developer writes you a check for the $2,000 difference. So all of that is a long way of saying those are the ways that we tried to mitigate our risks here and make sure that if we're going to put $2 million in, we're going to get that money back. So that's one of the two things that Catherine asked me to talk about. The other thing I'm going to touch very briefly, and she did it very well, this is a really complex development agreement in terms of ownership structure. It's weird that the bridge is owned by Kansas City, Missouri, and we're going to ultimately buy it from them for $1, assuming that the project is, all the conditions are met and we're ready to go forward, but we're going to own the asset. It was important to us to have the UG be the owner, because in the event that somewhere this thing doesn't work, that there's default, The UG needs to be able to control its destiny and decide what's going to happen if something falls apart. So that is sort of why you have this unique structure with 3 different documents. And I'll just say very briefly, there's a lease for the commercial components of the project and really a management agreement for the public spaces, the trails, the open, the public space of the trailhead. That stuff is really governed by a management agreement. And there's some tax benefit to doing that way. But importantly, and Catherine touched this, very importantly, those 2 documents, the UG owns it, but the UG passes on all of the indicia of ownership, all of the responsibility for maintaining it, paying taxes, insuring it, all of that is pushed forward to the developer, and they're obligated by those documents to do all of that. So these were important things to us as we tried to mitigate risks in this project because it's very unique. And I'm happy to also answer questions about the very detailed executive summary you have, but I'll stop there for now. I think that's what Catherine wanted me to touch.
Great, thank you so much, Todd. So with that is our lengthy presentation, but hopefully there's a lot of information to get through. So with that, any questions?
Committee, any questions? Commissioner Townsend. You're muted, Commissioner.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Zeller. I certainly hope the bridge doesn't have as many problems as I'm having tonight with this mute, unmute. Let me start off by saying, you come a long way, as Ms. Carter had said, from the initial discussion about this project to what we've heard tonight. So I commend you and your team, Mr. Ladden, Mr. McGurk, your co-owners. So, and Mr. LaSala, counsel, I do have, I guess, a lot of questions that probably would be more suited to your involvement here because they stem from the language of the executive summary. So let me start with some of those. I'm looking at the executive summary, section 4, phases, minimum improvements.
Yep.
And the opening of the food hall.
Right.
And maybe 4 is also tied to section 12 as assignment and transfers. There's going to be a food hall. And is this going to be on the top deck of the bridge or the lower deck? I'm a bit confused with where that's going to be.
Right. The food hall is anticipated to be on the lower deck.
So this is like a food court in a mall, similar to that.
I think Mr. Zeller could probably describe this better than me, but
okay.
I actually, why don't I turn it over to Mike? Mike, will you take this? Because you'll do a better job of explaining this than me.
Sure. Food hall is a term of art. It's 2 high velocity kitchens. It'll be a spiky business out there on a warm evening in June when the Royals are in town and Hy-Vee Arena is in full swing and there's things going on there. We've got some operators that are going to be able to serve 500 people an hour.
So I think, Commissioner, as you can see here on the picture, sorry for all the trying to find it. But yeah, so upstairs would be the event space, terrace, kind of more public space when there's not an event. Down here on the first floor, you'll have a couple different commercial kitchens that will then serve a multitude of different restaurants, as well as a coffee shop, so that people can come, grab a slice of pizza or some barbecue, and then sit, on the bridge and enjoy the ambiance. While this southern portion right here would be, it's kind of hard to see it in this angle, but would be the open public trail at all times.
Okay, so from the depiction that we're seeing now, on what level is this food hall, and where will the food vendors be?
Right here on the first floor.
Yeah, the kitchens are right there on the left side. 2 industrial kitchens. There's also a community kitchen in the community zone that's more of a pop-up kitchen.
And where is that going back to the depiction that was just shown a few slides ago?
It's one of the lightweight structures in the community zone on the western side of the bridge.
Let's go back to the other depiction that showed the 2 levels. I can appreciate that view more.
There you go.
Not that one.
There's the third
That one.
kitchen.
That one.
That's the community.
So with this depiction, where is the community kitchen?
In one of those shelters there.
On the
That's a
second?
guest kitchen. No, it's what you're looking at right now is on the central truss in the middle of the river. The
Mhm.
community zone is on the western truss at the western entrance to the bridge.
But it's
This
on
is-
that lower level.
Yes.
Yeah. The whole bridge is at that lower level, the public crossing all the way across, with the exception of in the middle, it has a second deck for parking.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is all of the food vendors are going to be on that lower level.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that level part of what's required in phase 1? Is that part of the phase 1 delivery?
Yes.
Okay. And with respect to section 12, article 12, the assignment and transfer. And I also note that in section 11, you have minority and women-owned business goals, which is great.
Yes.
I want some clarity though about the required participation for women and minority-owned vendors. I'm looking at section 12, and it seems like the developers here, Flying Trust, will be the one who will be entering directly into leases with tenants that occupy the food hall. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to say that I think this thing could be great. And that's why I am a great opportunity, great draw for KCK. And that's why I would want to see as many minority and women-owned businesses get in on the ground floor, so to speak, or the bridge level, so to speak. And so I appreciate that. I know, Mr. Zeller, you were able to already meet with a couple of the constituents in my district who would love to participate in this project. I think it could, go great guns for KCK as a draw. But I would like to see more teeth in Article 12 so that there is some guarantee that women minority-owned businesses are going to be part of who's on that bridge and get the opportunity to get in at the ground level on this. So that's my comment with respect to that. I'm still debating whether I want to see that required, but I think that's so important. And to have these people in an environment where folks who come through there can develop a brand loyalty, so to speak, to those restaurants. And when they come through there, they'll know they're going to see, Wilson's Pizza, or they know they're going to see Mrs. R's or whomever. So I thought I heard the term pop up, but I would love to see a more permanent presence on that bridge for minority and women owned. And I'm not ashamed to offer my 2 constituents for that. So I'd like to see that. We talked about the repayment period, the 2 million, I think, plus another 300,000. That was over what period of time? 10 years, 20 years? What are we looking at?
Right. It's amortized and really guaranteed by the developer over 20 years. The 12, 15-year period you hear us talking about is the projections based on the feasibility consultant. So at the outside, it's 20 years. It's expected based on conservative projections to be 5, 6, 7 years less than that in the 12, 13-year range.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the $2 million that we're looking to provide presently, let's say in the 20 years, we're looking at that value being what? Or maybe I'm asking it backwards. I'm looking at the present value of this money. That's really what I'm getting at. So the 2 million we loaned today is going to be worth how, in 20, what would be?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think I can answer this. The amortization schedule, hope I can do a good job of this. Maybe not. On Exhibit I of the I'm looking at Exhibit I of the development agreement, Commissioner, because we've got a very detailed amortization schedule that shows.
Exhibit I.
It's $2 million at a 2% interest rate over a 20-year period. So over the course of, so monthly, it's like $10,117 a month for 240 months. So the cumulative interest they're going to pay is $428,000 on that money we loan them over the 20 years.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Yes. Also on section 12, article 12, assignment and transfer.
Yes.
It says a developer may also make assignments to affiliates. Who or what are the affiliates? What do we mean there?
Well, it'll be a defined term in the development agreement. Over time, our experience with these has been that developers may want to transfer portions of their projects to affiliated entities so that they can have different ownership groups come in, partnership groups come in, and we want to give them some flexibility, typically, to make those kind of transfers where you still effectively have the same team, but you're giving them some flexibility around their ownership structure. So what that provision will say when you dig into it is that as long as Zeller and his team are maintaining control and we effectively have the same people on the other side of the table, they're allowed to do structural changes with affiliated entities that they would create that would have the same folks in control, but perhaps different owners, or be structured in a little different way.
Okay, so essentially is there, if the group that we are dealing with now, Flying Trust, basically remains the same, the principles involved.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Those provisions in your development agreement really give us a look and an approval right if there's going to be a big change. If somebody really new is going to come in and take this thing over and operate it, they're going to sell it and get out. That's when our approval rights kick in.
Okay. And that's what I was concerned about. Well, again, I think Mr. Zeller and his partners have come a long way since this was first proposed. I do feel strongly about, in the assignment and transfer section, adding an MBE requirement. I would love to see, and I just believe strongly that we need to have minority and women-owned businesses, especially over there, who are operating for decades in the Northeast End be able to get in on the ground floor at things like this. So those are my comments. Thank you.
I believe next is Commissioner Walters.
Thank you. I think this is a great project. I'm glad that it has morphed a little bit since we initially saw it, so that's very encouraging. I do have one question or clarification for either Catherine or Todd. Item 6, the UG improvements. Says we agree to provide design and construction of the following improvements, and it talks about trailhead parking, access. Is that are those improvements that we're making outside of the $2 million commitment?
Yes, these are improvements that we would be making outside. But the way that we're looking at that is that these are improvements that we would be making as part of the trailhead regardless. So having some amount of parking at that location to encourage people to come to the levee trails, as well as providing the ADA ramp to get from said parking or sidewalks to the trail would all be things that we would be doing anyway. And we're hoping.
Well, excuse me just a minute. We would not be making those improvements if we were not making the bridge into a bikeway, would we?
Well, we were going to do a trailhead at this location. It wouldn't have been obviously this extravagant.
Has this been designed and priced at this time?
We're working with HNTB right now to do that.
So if we commit to this, we are committing to sort of an open-ended budget to achieve these improvements?
I mean, I think within reason, we're not committing to a specific number of parking spaces. We're not committing to, but we are committing to providing parking. We have a piece of property already that we have due to some easements that were done as part of the levee project, as well as some additional.
Well, do we know if it's 100,000 or $1 million or somewhere in between, or is it truly open-ended at this point?
It's certainly less than $1 million. So I would say that would be.
Well, it would be good to close the loop and get some information on that.
Yeah, we are anticipating that we'll get those. I was just speaking with our public works folks today about making sure that we get those much more firm here quickly.
Thank you.
Walters, any other questions?
Nope, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been making some notes here as we've been going along and want to just share a few thoughts. I've tried to keep them organized. I'll apologize in advance if they wander off the rails and go several different directions. First of all, I think from the very beginning, the cool factor of this project has been off the charts. Having said that, anybody who's talked to me has known that I've had some concerns in my usual Eeyore way that this project was maybe too much of a gamble for the unified government. You know, recently the HRNA study suggests that it's not too much of a gamble for it. And some recent conversations that I've had have suggested that I'm thinking too small and too negative, and that I should and could think bigger and more positive about the potential long-term ramifications of this project. With that said, I certainly do support this project, and I think it's worth at least taking it forward to the full commission where more questions can be answered and where we can have a more robust discussion about our willingness to enter into this particular project. I do want to applaud Ms. Carter and Mr. LaSala and Flying Trust for continuing to work on this project, the details of the project. I think you've done a better job of ensuring that we minimize our collective risk and that we, and we'll put air quotes around it, but that we ensure the success of this project. And also, we reduce the amount that this project puts a strain on our infrastructure. As you've all heard me say before, every new project puts a strain on the physical and the personnel infrastructure of the unified government. And I think you're doing a much better job about making sure that resources flow to that infrastructure to support this project and the surrounding community. Let's see here. I do think that some of the ways that this has morphed have been really very positive. I like the redesign that provides a more direct and an always open trail across the first floor, the ground level of this bridge. It was of a concern to me that it was going to turn into, oh, you can't come through here now type of access. So I really applaud the design changes that make it a community asset every day of every year. I also like the fact that the UG will own and then lease back this. I was always nervous about us entering into an agreement where we did not own the infrastructure, and I thought that made it very hazy. So I appreciate the fact that we will own it. I like the fact that we're effectively creating a surety bond so that we will get paid back our money, even if this project does not pan out in the projections of the developers. I like the fact that our money is not first in. I like the way that you're proposing that the developer draws from us rather than simply get a bolus of money. So I like all of those. And it seems to me that we'll have an improved asset no matter what by the time this is all over. So even if all of the other amenities don't pan out, we will have an improved asset that ultimately do create the logical continuation of our existing Armourdale Levee Trail that starts out at Kansas Avenue, comes around to this spot, and then dead ends because there's nowhere else to go at this point. I do like the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Catherine or Todd, I can see you both here on my screen, but we are proposing that these funds would come from our transient guest tax pool, correct?
Yes.
I do appreciate that because it's important for me that these are not taxpayer generated funds like property taxes or sales taxes, but they are rather that excise tax. It is a tax, but it's a tax that's put on hotel room nights. And so it is a tax that is borne not simply by the residents and the taxpayers of Wyandotte County, but by anybody who books a room here. And my understanding is that these funds are designated to be spent for the promotion of visitors and tourism in Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County. And it would seem to me that this project certainly would do that. I really appreciate the fact, and I hope your projections are correct, that our repayment cycle will be much faster than the typical 20-year TIF. I do think that that gives us a more direct and a sooner benefit. And finally, you know, this maybe comes down to the I've been thinking too small, but I really do think as I talk to people that this could be a pretty far-reaching catalyst for future development, both east and west and north and south of this particular location. I had the opportunity to travel to the Louisville waterfront about a year ago. Well, it was before COVID, so it was longer ago than that. But they began the process of reinvigorating the Louisville waterfront, which, by the way, does have a pedestrian bridge as a part of its amenity set. But they started that 35 years ago, and they have kept the pace and kept a dogged determination to continue the next step and the next step. And it is quite an impressive waterfront amenity for that community. And it would seem to me that given the same commitment and given a similar time frame, we could have a similar effect in Kansas City. I do think that that this bridge could reach not only to the east side of the Kaw River, where we have a fairly small sliver of unified government property, but it could reach to the west side easily. It might influence the Armourdale Master Plan, which is in its nascent or beginning stages right now. And certainly I could anticipate that the effects of this might spread north toward Central Avenue, toward Strawberry Hill. And again, trying not to be Eeyore anymore and trying to think bigger, I do think that there could be a more far-reaching effect. So with all of that said, I applaud the evolution of this project. And I think I'm going to go back and echo what Commissioner Townsend had said. Compared to the first time we were given a dream of this, I think this is a much more robust project that has a much more tangible and defined positive impact on us, while at least trying to mitigate the negative impacts that could come our way as we enter into this. So I certainly do support moving this forward for further discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up, I have Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want a quick question to Catherine. To Commissioner Townsend's point, I thought we do have goals for MBE, LBE, WBE in our agreement. Is that correct?
Yes, we do for construction.
Oh, just for construction?
Yeah, not for, and I can let Todd get into the legality of doing that for subleasing.
Right. So we have over the years, we always have construction goals, always. Right. We don't always have operational goals, which I think is what Commissioner Townsend's talking about. And operational goals are, we've from time to time will impose on development partners, particularly when they control the operations. The tricky part here that we'll have to think about and maybe talk to the developer about, the tricky part here is the developer is not really going to be operating these restaurants, the coffee bar, the catering, like most of that is all of that really is subleased to somebody else. And so we're going to be a step removed from the operator. And I think, it's important to Commissioner Townsend, so it's important to us, but I think it's going to be a little tricky to figure out how to make those subtenants operate in accordance with goal. They're not really going to have a relationship with us. And so, again, it's important. And I think we're going to need to talk about it, but we may be in a position where we've got our developer strongly encouraging its tenants to meet these objectives, to emphasize operation in this fashion. But it may be difficult because we're a step removed.
Well, and I will say this, and I see she's got her hand raised back up, so she'll probably double down on this at least with more clarity than myself. It's not only important to her, it's important to me, but I think more importantly, it's important to our community as a whole, right? That we have some real emphasis on local, businesses that are the beneficiary of this project. I will say, and let me make another statement about our investment. Is there, and forgive me for being so crass, but is there any way that we can get our investment any quicker than even what's been projected? I mean, you're talking still in excess of 10 years before we could get the full investment repaid, even with an amortization that is, even if it's paid back quicker than what has been showed in the amortization statement.
I don't know.
I'm thinking from a LIFO perspective,
I get it. I absolutely get it. We have negotiated a lot about this very point. I think what the developer might tell you is, look, we've spread this over 20 years because the developer, have to write a check if for some reason the revenue stream is not as robust as we all hope. We think it will be, but if it's not, and so the developer, I think, has asked for that longer period so that if they actually have to come out of pocket and start writing checks, it gives them time. I think they would tell you the best thing we can hope for is that these conservative projections are really conservative, in which case we think we're paying this thing off in 12 years or maybe less. But Commissioner, it's a really good question because it's been a hotly negotiated point between the two parties on this thing all along.
Right. Well, I'll make my final statement. I think that we are obligated to leverage the asset of our river systems. It's somewhat of a shame that we have not up to this point done so outside of what's been done at Call Point. But I think that, this is a first step in regards to leveraging the great resource that we have in the Kaw River, but also there may be opportunities later on with the Missouri River that runs around to past our Quindaro ruins and whatnot. So again, I see this as a way of us dipping our toes in the river, so to speak, to be able to have a positive asset that will benefit our city. I think also it's incumbent that the surrounding neighborhoods, as we saw in Louisville, I think it's incumbent that the neighborhoods are bought in and are partners in this process, so as to create the kind of vibrancy that we'll want to see for years to come. So with that, I'll conclude my statement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Next, I see Commissioner Townsend for the second time.
Thank you. Yes. Commissioner Johnson's right. I'm going to double down. I don't play cards, but I know that term. So you're right. I'm going to reemphasize how important I believe it is to have minority and women-owned vendors as leasees on that bridge, because I think this bridge project is really going places. And it's important to get those people who have held down Wyandotte County as vendors on that bridge, and particularly minorities in that northeast end. Again, I applaud Mr. Zeller for meeting with two of the best in District 1, but we need some teeth, I believe, in this agreement, because as you say, Councilor LaSala, the UG is not going to be the leasing agent. Flying Trust is. Right. And that's why I'm saying we need to have some type of still a hand on that entity to accomplish those. Yes, the MBE goals are great for construction, but beyond that, once it's up and running, it's who's on that bridge. To Commissioner McKiernan's point, I like thinking big. So I want to ask, I saw the canoeing and all that. Would jet skis be allowed under that bridge? To Commissioner Johnson's point, tying in Carl Park, I'd like to see as an opening act the recreation of the water ski episode with I can't call her name now, that's a shame. Esther Williams, my girl Esther Williams, who did the sparklers on her hair. Let's go for that and do that under the bridge too. I'm sure you can find somebody who'll do that and really light it up. So think big, but that's why I'm so serious about having goals that Flying Trust will control or have direct input into for minority vendors on that bridge. I think you're going places, and our people should go with you. So thank you.
Next up, I have Mr. Bryant.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrows. So, I've been kind of watching the movement on this project for quite a few months now, and it happens to fall in my BPU district. It's exciting. I'm just going to put it out there that I understand Commissioner Johnson's concern about, the ROI being in a shorter pace if possible. But I don't think it's just about the money that's invested in this bridge. I think it's about what this type of project will do for the entire community around the area. I think that the UG will see a benefit not just from the revenue that comes from this bridge and the businesses associated with it, but the rest of that tract of land that is Kansas territory on the east side of the river will be primed for development, as well as Armourdale. I think that it won't be very many years, and you're going to see some changes in the housing in that area, and we may see, the desire to put in loft type buildings possibly down along the riverfront. I just think that it's exciting to see something like this come to Kansas City. I've seen it in other cities that we visited, and it's been too many years since Kansas City had a riverfront destination. So it'll be nice to see something like this take shape. Thank you.
I don't show any other hands from the panelists. If I may, I do have a few comments. Mr. Zeller has never been shy about his aspirations for that bridge. But as your chair of this committee, I want to thank the committee and commend this committee for raising the tough questions and having the tough conversation that has brought us to where we are this evening in reference to this project. Because now there will be ownership of the bridge. Now there will be a development that we have all had an opportunity to have input in. And actually, a better return on investment is due to the fact that we were able to partner out of suggestions from this committee with the Department of Commerce to have the feasibility study conducted by an outside organization, which answers a lot of the questions and puts to rest some of the concerns many of us brought forward this evening. But the quicker the return, that just states to the quality of the project. So if we want to incentivize the developer to continue to invest in the project, I believe the agreement has touched on part of that this evening. I know that we as a committee have challenged Mr. Zeller. A number of us have, and we've had very robust discussion, as I stated, but it has been, I want to echo what Catherine Carter said, when it is a much better design and a much better agreement where we are today. And for that, I thank the committee's perseverance in reading through the contract, putting forward their suggestions and their comments. And I know this project is a catalyst for additional development, but because we have taken the time to review the contract in great length as individual committee members, staff has come forward, and so as a developer, with a much better project that we can all take some pride in having some ownership in. So on another note, I want to state that I did have a long conversation today with the Department of Commerce Lieutenant Governor David Tolan. He has committed to coming to Kansas City in April with myself and a few others to look at the project and see where we can additionally find some additional partners so that we can expand the project and bring those enhancements that we've heard and had much discussion about this evening. I'm very excited that the Secretary of Commerce / Lieutenant Governor has that type of interest in our community. It states a lot about the potential for this project. So I just wanted to make that announcement this evening. That was just before I came on board this evening. I did have a long discussion with the secretary, who has much interest in this project for our community and for the potential that provides for the state of Kansas. I did have one question on the renderings. In the agreement, it talks about an elevator system for ADA requirements from the first level to the second level. At each end of the bridge, all I saw were stairs. And so is there ramps and or an opportunity for those that may have difficulty maneuvering the steps to be able to enjoy the walkability and or the connectivity of both sides and enjoy the bridge itself?
Yes, there would be ramps on either side of the bridge to get really to get to the levee trail, and then that the levee trail is connected to the bridge, so that will all be connected via ramps. And then Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are anticipating a elevator or lift system actually in the middle of that central truss of the bridge to get people who may need extra assistance from that first level to that second level.
Yes.
Thank you. I think that's critically important for the members of our community and to the visitors to the site to ensure that they're included in the enjoyment and the satisfaction of seeing that development and enjoying the amenities that many of us have talked about this evening. With that, I do see we have some attendees that have been very, very patient. I do see a few hands up. So if I may, I do want to remind those that are joining us this evening to announce your name, your place of residence, and I would ask the clerk to monitor the time. We're going to allow 3 minutes for each conferee. I would ask all conferees if what they're stating is what somebody else has stated, be mindful that with as many hands as we have, we're talking about quite a bit of time here, but it is very important that we do have a chance to listen to the attendees. So with that, clerk, I show Anna Cole. Anna, we can't hear you.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can now.
Hi, thank you. My name is Anna Cole, and my address is 245 Orchard Street, Kansas City, Kansas, 66101. I've been a resident of Wyco for about 12 years in Strawberry Hill, and a lot has been mentioned already, that the finer points about it being a catalyst for growth on the CAW. I think what I've gathered here today, and what's really important to state to me, is that as a Wyco citizen, Mike Zeller and his team have very much made it a point to include us and what we really want as citizens over here. They didn't sneak anything, under the bridge. They've been very straightforward and done it for several years at this point. And as far as the other reasons, I think it is a great idea and should go forward, is that I like that we're not really taking money away. We're not just throwing money away. This will be repaid back. It's not some pipe dream. There's been studies, and it will get paid back. And again, I can see the call right now. It's just bare. There's nothing going on. It's a huge resource for us that's just sitting there. So if not now, when? You have the levy raises, why not do it now in tandem with that? And I'll keep it short because I think a lot of other stuff has already been mentioned, but thank you.
Anna, thank you for joining us this evening.
Sure.
Next, I have Scott.
Yes. I'm Scott Brown, General Counsel with the Fall of Starch Bynamic Company, who's been down in the bottom since 1877. I've served on numerous boards with KCIC, Historic West Bottoms, the Riverfront Heritage Trail. Great. I am very much an advocate of this project. As Mr. Bryant pointed out, Mr. McKiernan, and other council or commissioners, that this project, who knows, that the sky's the limit. I think that certain concerns or objectives, such as the minority and women owned, that might be satisfied. And Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Johnson, I think the payback might be satisfied, but maybe increasing the TIF district a little bit. I know that development of the Kansas Avenue side, in part of the master plan, the Armourdale master plan, and the additional tax revenue that will be raised via sales and ad valorem, that might be a solution to get more women and minorities involved, and also get that payback maybe a little sooner than later. But I think that this project just really complements the vision, or what may likely be the vision of Armourdale and the region of being a river towns, Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas. The whole region, we got to take advantage of the river and what it has to offer in the way of the social, the economic, the environmental, the safety, and the quality of life issues that you all raised. I just can't applaud Mike and the UG and others in making this possible.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your comments this evening. Next on deck, we have Edgar Galicia.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Edgar Galicia, Central Avenue Betterment Association. We just want to extend our appreciation to all of the people involved in the project, because yes, has been quite a time, quite a while since the first drawings were presented, the first ideas were presented, and the maturity of the project, as you all mentioned, is amazing. But I would like to note something to us that is very important. This is a destination site, but it's just the beginning, what I like to call as a detonator of the area. This is just the beginning of an enormous project that would benefit everyone and would literally change the history of our community on the west side of the county. I'm sorry, the east side of the county. The central area is next to it, and we want to see the growth of this project to connect the central area, just as it should connect to Kansas Avenue and many other ports of entry or doors to the river. The parking has to be there, the amenities have to be there, but this is just the beginning. And I want to thank Commissioner Townsend, Johnson, McKernan, for bringing to the forefront our community and the low-income business owners who are there struggling every day, and knowing that these would represent a huge opportunity for all of them and their investment.
You have 1 minute remaining.
As the mayor pointed at the beginning of his period, the corridors composed of Central, 7th Street, 6th Street, and Minnesota Avenue generate more, just about the same amount of revenue that all of those huge companies that have come to house in our county, but they generate more jobs and more stability. We need to create more of that, and this is a perfect opportunity. Thank you all for giving this opportunity to the people.
Thank you, Mr. Galicia, for your comments. I did have other hands that have been lowered. At this time, I see no other conferees from the public. I would ask the clerk, were there any letters submitted in reference to the development?
Yes, Chairman, we definitely did receive 8 correspondences in support of the Riverfront Redevelopment District. We have 4 that are on Zoom tonight that will be wanting to speak. And then we have 3 that we want to acknowledge by reading their correspondence, and 1 that just wanted to be acknowledged that they are definitely in support.
Thank you. Do you want to read those at this time, or do you want to send them individually to the commissioners?
I will go ahead, Chair, and call the first person, the first 4 that want to speak, and then thereafter, we can read the correspondences for those that were in support and acknowledge the last one.
Great.
Is that okay?
Thank you. First attendee, please.
That's going to be Mike Pierce of Slaps Barbecue.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for the time. It's been a great meeting. I've learned a lot. I'll keep it very brief. Just a couple points as a business owner on Central Avenue. A huge part of our success story here has been the community, but even bigger than that has been an authentic experience. And I know Mr. Zeller talks a lot about this in his deck, but when he proposed the bridge, it rang a chord with us due to the experience-based concept. And I can't emphasize enough, good food's important, good customer service is important, but we're finding that people want to spend their time, more so than their money, but their time on an authentic experience. And I can't think of anything better than, an experience on that river. We grew up on the rivers. My brother and I, every summer was spent on the water. And we need that. We need that here in Kansas City. And then the second part is, we battle with this as a business, which is pulling people across this. It's not really an imaginable divide. It's a real divide, the geographic divide of crossing the river. And I'll use the example of First Fridays in Kansas City. West Bottoms can have 100,000 people down there, and we've got nobody in Armourdale. We got nobody on Central Avenue. We got nobody downtown. It's our lowest weekends of the year is First Fridays. And that's a shame, So I think, the bridge isn't right across from Central Avenue, but starting to move in that direction and to bring something that's just absolutely as cool as that, as unique as that, and then it's going to draw as much attention, starts to invite people to be willing to cross that imaginary or real geographic divide. And so on behalf of SLAPS, we are all for this and appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Tiffany, the next one.
Chairman, we have Benjamin Walker, which is a realtor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Walker?
Hello, my name is Benjamin Walker. My address is 716 South 11th Street, Kansas City, Kansas, 66105. I'm a fourth generation Armourdale resident. And I just want to say how much in favor and how much I love the idea about the Rock Island Bridge and what Mike and his team is doing. The call and the levee trail is something that I value and love so much and highly, from the countless memories that I have made on it and just the countless more that I keep making every weekend that I go out on it. But also because of the opportunity that there is to preserve nature and to give the youth and the community a place to go while getting fresh air and sunlight. And I think, I know that the Rock Island Bridge is a catalyst and a canvas for so much more opportunity for the community, for the youth, and to preserve nature and history for the area and the surrounding areas, the outreach, north, south, east, and west. So yeah, that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, for your comments. Tiffany?
The next one we have, Chairman, is going to be Daryl Walker.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Walker. Tiffany, is he still on the line?
It's a call in. If you give us just a moment. If not, Chair, we can go to the next one. Just one moment, okay? Okay, he's there, but he's muted.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Daryl Walker, 717 South 11th, Kansas City, Kansas, 66105. Just a couple of short comments about the bridge project. One, I think it's the greatest thing along with everyone else. The thing about this is that I like is everyone's included. No one's left behind. If you're going down to have dinner, cup of coffee, ride your bicycle, you're just a kid with a fishing pole, there's a place for you. And, for the youth of our community, it's going to be a great thing. I think, there's some fishing clubs can start up for kids, kayaking, boating. There's just so much, it's just endless. And, like I say, I think the great thing is there's just a place for everybody. And my hat's off to Mike and his team. Really impressed with all the work and the concept that's laid out. And pretty much that's it for me, but I just wanted to voice my opinion.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Walker, and thank you for your patience with us this evening.
Oh, you bet. Thank you.
Next up.
Chairman, next we have Bob McCartney of Outside Sales.
Okay.
I don't see a Bob on, Mr. Chair.
Do we have?
Okay, we'll go ahead to the next one,
Okay.
which is Daniel Serta, who's in support.
Okay.
Good evening, Chairman and other members of the commission. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you briefly about this. Daniel Serta, 1816 South Mill Terrace, Kansas City, Kansas. I'm really speaking in a couple of different contexts. First and foremost, as a native and resident of Kansas City, Kansas, and someone who grew up in Armourdale back in the 1970s. Second, as a professional city planner who about almost 5 years ago now met Mike Zeller and heard about his what then seemed somewhat far-fetched idea, but in a way that struck a chord with me because of the knowledge and that I have of the history of the Kansas City stockyards. And I want to start there really briefly with saying a couple of things. The first is that this bridge symbolically, the way that it crosses the Kaw, should reinforce to everyone how integral the stockyards, the West Bottoms, and Armourdale in particular were to the history and the growth of not only Kansas City, Kansas, but of the Kansas City region. Without the infrastructure that was down there a century ago, we wouldn't have the major city that we do today. Without all of the industry that was in Armourdale, we wouldn't have the major city that we have today. The work that I did 4 years ago as part of the Mark Planning Sustainable Places project that Mike referenced earlier was focusing on the historical evolution and development of this bridge in the surrounding area. But that's all done with the purpose of really focusing on the potential for today and for the future. And that's where I want to leave the thought with you. You know, there's some really key economic figures that we uncovered in that study, and I'm more than happy to share them with all of you, but let me give you two very quickly. The first is that I understand the concern about the finances. You have to do the due diligence. I appreciate the fact as a taxpayer that you're doing that and you've done that. But we looked at 6 similar projects like this around the country and found that those projects actually generated returns on investment from 6 to 40 times the level of local government investment in revitalizing a waterfront. They were at different scales in a different contexts, but the multiplier effect can be really dramatic out of a project like this. The other part is that investments like this can dramatically increase the value and the interest in surrounding real estate. We saw property increases of 25 to 50% in similar projects in adjacent real estate. But the final thought I want to leave you with is that, as you know, I still refer to myself as a kid who grew up in Armourdale.
You have 1 minute.
We don't have the, thank you. We don't have the level of amenities in Kansas City, Kansas, particularly when it comes to active recreational opportunities in the eastern part of the city that our children deserve. There are over 3,000 residents of Armourdale today. That's a bare glimmer of the 20,000 people that lived there before the 1951 flood. But as somebody who grew up there in the 70s when businesses were leaving and the neighborhoods were hollowing out, I can tell you, it was never fun to try to approach any of those bridges. And the idea that we could have a massive public amenity, benefit to kids, as was mentioned earlier, from Armourdale as part of this, as well as benefit to the business owners on Kansas Avenue and potential opportunities for them on the bridge, as Commissioners Townsend and Johnson have really underscored, I think is all worthy of commending this project. And I appreciate your listening to me and would certainly put my personal endorsement behind it.
Thank you, Mr. Serta. Appreciate your comments. Tiffany, any other callers?
Absolutely, Chairman. They have 3 that would like to have their correspondences read
Please.
In support. I'll start with the first one. Monica Mendez said, I would like to express my full support to this project as I see the benefit to future business growth and investment in Kansas City, Kansas. The Rock Island Bridge will bring tourism opportunities. Most importantly, I believe the opportunities for local neighborhoods and its residents to see this as part of the area where they live and can enjoy. KCK has the river as a natural asset, and currently many local people don't feel safe walking in the levee. If there is a point of attraction, we would see more positive activity in the levee. I have been working 11 years in promoting physical activity. There is much more than economic development opportunities. It is also an attraction where many partners in the area should commit to bring youth opportunities of entertainment to keep them focused in healthy lifestyle activities. We need investment in this side of our city. Let's start somewhere. Again, that's Monica Mendez, Armadale Renewal Association, and support.
Wonderful, thank you.
The next one that was received, Chairman, was Larry Sprang. And he says, I am a resident of Armadale. I am strongly in favor of the RIB partnership and this project as a whole. My wife and I remodeled Fire Station number 6 in Armadale and are big supporters of repurpose and improvement of many wonderful things we have around our city. This project, brings much needed attention and traffic to our riverfront, which is underused in our city. The riverfront is a wonderful area that we need to make use of for attractions, living and social areas. We make use of the levee trails for walking and bike riding and would love to be able to connect to the trails on the east side. This would be a great asset to visibility and positive vision for our area and bring interest of more business and projects on the riverfront. We have talked with many people throughout the county about this project, and many have asked about it and want to make sure to visit when in Kansas City. Thanks, Larry Sprang. The last letter I want to read, Commissioner, is from Bridget Job. She said, to whom it may concern, this letter is to express my support for the Rock Island Bridge project. I first learned of this project in my former position as the Executive Director of the Kansas City, Kansas Convention and Visitors Bureau. Since July 2019, I have received as the Kansas Director of Tourism and have continued to monitor and support this project. I envision the Rock Island Bridge as the vibrant front door to Kansas City, Kansas, and to the state of Kansas. As America's first destination landmark bridge, I believe it has the potential of hosting 60,000 plus visitors per year, as it will be a can't miss spot for convention attendees, tour buses, and leisure travelers. The uniqueness of bringing unprecedented attention to KCK in Kansas in the near future, I imagine a shot of the Rock Island Bridge being broadcast during every NASCAR race held at Kansas Speedway. Kansas Tourism has supported the Rock Island Bridge project with an attraction development grant to assist in its development. I believe this project is the exciting first step in renewal of the Kansas riverfront. Reinventing a bridge structure to become an authentic and unique attraction is a benefit to both KCK and the state of Kansas. I urge you to support the Rock Island Bridge project. Sincerely, Bridget Job, Kansas Director of Tourism. And the last one, we wanted to acknowledge, no need to read the letter, but they wanted to acknowledge they are definitely in full support. It's Governor/Secretary David Tollin. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Appreciate it. And thank you to our conferees and attendees this evening that voiced their support of the project and took the time this evening to join us. I would like to state that I also received communications from the Wyandotte County Economic Development Organization, Greg Kendall, whose organization is also supportive of the bridge and the project. So with that,
Mr. Chair, we do have one more person with their hands up, and that's Mr. Phil Dolan, and he's the last one that's requesting to speak tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I was going to get to that. So we will ask Mr. Dillon to please announce your name and place of residence.
Phil Donnellan with the Kansas City Boat Club. We're located on the Kansas River, just downstream of the Rock Island Bridge. I was the one that butted in on a much earlier talk, and I apologize for that. I'm a little bit of a novice at this. Anyway, we're a group of high school and adult rowers that row on the river. We have a dock on the river, like I said, just downstream of the bridge. We probably pass under that bridge more than anyone else, so we've got a vested interest in making sure that bridge is a good attraction. We support the project, obviously. I could go on and repeat all the things that other people have said, but one thing I've been saying for 20 years is that river is a much underutilized and underappreciated resource. We love it for rowing. It's a great venue. We think the project would be, like a lot of people said, a catalyst, bring people down to the river, and as a destination and as part of a trail. Right now, I ride my bike on the trail from 12th Street, and then I get off, have to go over 23rd or over Kansas Avenue to get across the river because I can't use the Rock Island Bridge. But in any event, we think it'd be great to have the trail system here. In terms of being a catalyst, one day we'd like to build a boathouse on the river, which would be economic development. I was in Oklahoma City over the weekend watching a race. Oklahoma City has invested, I don't know, maybe $20 million in boathouses along the river. We're not going to build that much, but there is a lot of potential for development. And then the final point, and I'll be quiet, is that we've had a race in the
You
past.
have 1 minute remaining.
Right. We've had a race in the past on the Kansas River, head of the Kaw. We've had participants from Oklahoma, Colorado, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, upwards of 300, 400 participants. And having the bridge as an amenity would take some of the strain of hosting events. We'd probably have more events because the bridge could provide the support resources for being a host for an event. So anyway, it's a great project. Been enjoying watching it kind of morph and evolve over the last couple of years, and hope that it succeeds. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dell, for your comments. Tiffany, any other comments this evening?
Chairman, that's all we received.
Thank you. Thank you, staff. I want to come back to the committee before we entertain a motion. Committee, any other questions or comments from committee itself? I don't see any hands. In closing, I'd just like to state again my most sincere appreciation for the committee's work ethic and questions and the vision that we felt was necessary to advance this project and to help Mr. Zeller believe that his project is the catalyst that will benefit our community as well as enhance his vision and bring to fruition his dream. So with that, I would entertain a motion. This is an action item.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner McKiernan. I would move to approve and advance to full commission.
Johnson, second.
We have a motion and a second. I would ask the clerk to please call a roll.
Roll call, Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. That takes us on to item number 3, which is again Riverfront Development. Item 3 is setting a public hearing date for the Riverfront Development District. And again, Catherine Carter will be making the presentation. So welcome back to committee, Catherine.
Ooh, thank you very much. So this is a quick one, don't worry. So this is just setting a public hearing. Back in August, I believe, of this year, the Riverfront Development District, so that's a TIF district, was approved. This is the area that was approved at the time. One of the things that we discovered as this project kind of morphed is that we wanted to make sure a bit more of the property where we're looking to do potential parking and some other improvements would be included. And then there was also just a procedural issue with the legal description. So this was, again, the TIF district that was approved August 13th. And this is what we would anticipate for the change that we would make. So adding this property here to the west, as well as a bit of property to the south, to just really provide us with as much flexibility as possible in terms of TIF eligible projects. So again, this is just setting the public hearing for May 13th.
Thank you, Catherine. Committee, any questions, comments? Seeing none. Any clerk, any comments from the public?
Chairman, we did not receive any.
Thank you. Hearing none. With that, I do see a hand went up. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Point of clarification. For the public meeting, is that only to talk about the size and scope of the proposed TIF? Or would public comments be entertained about the more detailed subject matter as we've heard tonight?
So great question. So we would make sure that we would not bring the development agreement to the full commission until May 13th so that these could be heard at the same time, similar to this evening. So there would certainly be a time for the public to discuss, as was done tonight, kind of the larger deal terms, but then there will be the statutorily required public hearing for the modification of the TIF district.
Okay, I'm not sure if I understood what you said, yes or no with that. For instance, if there was to be a modification, say to Article 12, would that have already been done by this May?
No, it will come up on the same date. So just like tonight, both of these items will come up back to back.
Okay.
Commissioner Townsend, did you get your question answered? I want to ensure that you understand that this is a hearing set for, I believe the date is sometime in May 15th. Is that correct?
May 13th, I believe.
May 13th. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. But I do hope that you have comfort in the question you ask and the answer you receive.
Well, let me try one more time. Let's say that Councilor Sala comes forward with a proposed amendment to the Article 12 that we discussed earlier.
Right.
Would that be part of the discussion?
Not at this public hearing, no.
Okay, all right.
So it would be the same evening. So it would be a separate item, just like tonight, 2 separate votes. So there would be the ability to discuss the development agreement, and then there will be a separate public hearing, which is what is being called here, that would just be for the boundary.
Okay, and so on May 13th is just for the boundaries?
We will also bring forth that we're holding the development agreement to that date as well. So you'll hear both items.
Thank you. I'm clear. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Quite welcome. Any other comments or questions, committee? I see none, and I see none from our attendees. With that, I believe we will entertain a motion.
Commissioner McKiernan, move to approve and advance to full commission.
Johnson, second.
We do have a motion and a second to move to a May 13th public hearing. I'd ask the clerk, please call roll.
Roll call, Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Again, thank you, committee. That takes us to our final item this evening, item number 4, which is the TIF and IRB policies that are, I believe Catherine will be once again presenting this evening. So Catherine, at your convenience.
Thank you very much. Catherine Carter, Director of Economic Development. So these are the policies that we discussed as a for information only 2 months ago. So it was the February 1st ED&F meeting. I have had subsequent conversations with our attorneys as well as finance, some very minor cleanup, but substantively nothing has been changed from the time that we reviewed these together at that previous committee meeting. So just as a kind of quick kind of overview, if you would like, the industrial revenue bond was last updated in 2010. There were really no significant policy recommendations, and everything that we're doing is consistent with the Kansas statute. But really what we're trying to do with the new policy is just making sure that we are kind of codifying many of the things that we're already doing in practice. And then providing kind of additional information. So the goal is to be able to, hand this to a developer and have them actually have a pretty good understanding and idea of what the commission's policies are when it comes to the use of this tool. For example, the point of this tool really is to fill that financial gap. So really not providing more incentive than is needed, but taking the finances of a project and determining what is needed, and encouraging them to change that project in a way that would provide them with additional benefit, but also provide the community with that benefit. So to that end, we have these kind of bonus provisions. So your project is looked upon more favorably, the more capital investment, if you're in a targeted area, targeted industry, if you currently have WICO employees working for your company, of course, LMW goals, environmental design, change that just a bit to make it a bit more broad. Now, LEED is not the sole certification anymore as it was 11 years ago. And then adding a couple additional things like transit and childcare that are big needs for companies, and we would like to really encourage them to think about that. And if that means giving 5% more abatement, but they are providing childcare for the community, for the neighborhood, or even just their employees, that's a real community benefit, we believe. Term of the abatement, still 10 years, fee schedule not changed. We have been more clear, and again, this is something we've been doing already in practice, but now just codifying that, adding real clawback provisions so that if the LMW goals are not met, if any of those other bonus provisions are not done, then we have a clear way to take some of that funding back, so that they are not getting that full benefit. The tax increment financing policy, we've never actually had a specific TIF policy. We've just kind of worked off of the Kansas statute, which is very detailed, so has been a good roadmap. But again, there are many things that we do in practice that have been, become very clear preferences of you all as the commission, but have not actually been codified. So that really is our goal, and have the ability to provide, hand this policy to a developer and have them really understand what's going on, not have any big surprises, especially when it comes to fees and timing and that kind of thing. We make a clear preference for pay-as-you-go financing. I think this is important. The number of times that we get, people interested in, can't we just have the unified government issue some GO bonds for our project? Well, no, we can't. That's not really how it works. Except in very, very specific special circumstances. So making those type of things very clear to developers on the front end, that this is where our preference is. Additionally, things such as, we do not bring a project forward to you all if the public financing is going to exceed more than 20% of the total costs. And if we do, it's a very special, specific situation that we make sure you are very aware of. additional, having some sunset provisions. This has come up a number of times in my time here where we've had a TIF district. No project plan has been approved, but a TIF district's just kind of sitting out there, which is fine. But those are the type of things that if we can kind of clean up and make sure that all of our taxing units are reflective of what's actually happening, really just better for everyone. And then the last couple are having a TIF cap. So we can talk about a percentage, of revenue that can go to, go back into the project. But we really like to put a TIF cap in each of these agreements because you just don't know. So, for example, an area may appraise faster, thus they get more money back than they were anticipating. And again, we're really talking about, we're here, these tools are to actually fill a gap. They're not just to give a big windfall of funding. So making sure that TIF cap is reflective of exactly that amount of money that is needed to make the project move forward and not more than that is what that is for. And then again, we do an administrative fee of 1%, so codifying that. And with that, that's kind of my quick and dirty kind of overview of those policies. So any questions? Thank you. Commissioner, you are muted.
I do see Commissioner Johnson. I apologize. Committee, any questions outside? Mr. Johnson, you're up first. Commissioner.
I just want to say, Catherine, thank you for putting this together. The thoroughness of what you presented. I thought I was going to have questions. I have no questions. Just have great appreciation for the amount of detail and thoughtfulness that you put into what's a tool that is so greatly utilized by the unified government. So thank you for taking the time and the effort and painstakingly putting together such a thorough policy. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Commissioner McKiernan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, if Commissioner Johnson has no questions, I guess I really don't either, but I will echo what he has said. We really do appreciate your continuing efforts to craft a tool that both encourages economic development while at the same time bringing as much benefit to the people of Wyandotte County and protecting all of us as best we can moving forward in any project. So I appreciate what you've done.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Catherine, I would just like to commend your work in formalizing our economic development department and for actually putting in writing a formal policy that we as commissioners have had a chance to review and have knowledge when these projects come forward. It's easier for us in which to look at the justifications that you've given, and hopefully will limit some of the questions we ask moving forward. So I do appreciate the discussion. And what I'm really pleased about is the clawback language. I think it sends a strong message if you don't fulfill your obligation as agreed upon in the initial part of the development agreement, that there is remedy for the unified government for the incentives offered on the table for a clawback. And I commend you for giving that strong consideration.
Thanks.
Any other comments, questions, anything from the public?
With that, I move for approval as submitted.
Okay.
Johnson. Second.
There is a motion and a second to advance to full commission the IRB and TIF resolution. I would ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call, Bryant.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Townsend.
I add my sentiments of congratulations to Ms. Carter and appreciation and thanks for her hard work.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Committee, staff, everyone, thank you for your patience with us this evening. It was an evening of much discussion about an economic development project that has taken up a tremendous amount of time, but it's also been worth the finished product. So with that, I want to say good night and thank you. This concludes our meeting for this evening. We are now adjourned.